Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with a world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
Hey everybody, welcome. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Woohoo. It's been a long week. You know, we're still recovering from this past weekend in Texas, and it's hopefully by tomorrow and the weekend I'll be totally recovered from the trip.
I know. I was sitting here and we were talking before the show and I scratched my eye and I'm sitting here going, hello.
You're not supposed
my eye starts watering and I look like I'm crying. I'm really not.
Really not. No, not at all. I am going to bring up our other co-host real quick. There he is. Hey, Wolf.
And there he is.
Hey, ladies.
How are you?
Hey, sliding in.
Huh.
How you doing?
That's what happens when you're busy.
Good.
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate you doing this for us.
Well,
you truly, you know, Brandy and I were just talking about the Texas trip, and you and Nellie are two of the nicest people I've ever met, and I truly mean that. You really are.
well, she is.
You're good people. You are.
Oh, she is.
Are. Brandy, you want to run through the lineup real quick, and then we'll just go ahead and bring Rod up, and we'll get this rolling.
Absolutely.
Are we live already?
We're live.
Yeah, we're already going. Sure.
Yep.
That's all right. That's what we love to do. Just spring it on us. On Mondays at 7 p.m., it is the Danielle Diva Dimension. She's at 7 p.m. Central Monday nights. 8 p.m. Central, it's Texas Front Porch with Tex and myself. Tuesday evening, it is Beyond BMR with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and his lovely co-host Krista. On Wednesdays at 7 p.m., it's Donnie Cho Says Stuff. At 8 p.m., of course, we've got, Barton Nunley and his wife, Letitia. On Thursdays at 12 p.m. Central, it's Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And currently, he does not have a co-host, so we'll see who he has on next week. Thursday evening, of course, it's us, Blondes and Booze. And Friday nights at 8 p.m. Central, it's us again with Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. And don't forget to catch live PRT at 9 p.m. or 9:30, depending on when he comes on. That is Paranormal Roundtable. On Saturdays, we currently do not have any shows. On Sundays at 5 p.m. Central, catch it Truth or Tinfoil. And at 6 p.m. Central, it's Tex and Danielle Diva and their newest episode of Infamous Minds.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I know. It's like I'm afraid I'm gonna forget somebody every now and again.
You're not gonna go through how many times we're on this week. You're not gonna do that for me.
You're on.
We thought we would let you do that.
I don't
Thursdays,
care.
Fridays, and
I didn't mention Paranormal Roundtable live Friday nights.
Yeah.
Fridays has gotten to where it's not even like the big deal now. It's like it's Sunday. Sundays become
It's Sundays. Yes, I am amazed that it's Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday is like we get like 5 or 6, and then we get about 4 or 5 on Friday. But I guess I don't know. You'd think more people would be there on Friday night. I mean,
right.
I would be more, apt to be watching a show on Friday night than Sunday.
Yeah, I'd be in bed on Sunday nights. Absolutely.
But Sunday we start earlier, so maybe that's what it is. We were like,
maybe
7 o'clock, and
yeah.
I mean,
well, we get done with our show on Friday nights, and then we come over to your show.
Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, we got the
That's where our fun
Tuesday.
is.
We It's Tuesday and Wednesday of this month because we moved Thursday to where I'm going to be with you guys. So
Yeah.
Tuesday is the retelling of encounters, and then Wednesday we have a guest, and then
Awesome.
we do the what's it called? Thursday with you guys. Friday is a live stream, and then Sunday's a live stream. But this week we're gonna be on Saturday, and I was gonna have Christopher Jordan and Jason McLean, but now I'm gonna have Jason, and I can't think of who the other person is gonna be. I have 3 different people
Mm-hmm.
that I'm
awesome.
gonna have to decide who's gonna do that, and that's gonna be the UAP thing. So we're gonna be doing
Yeah.
which is something I
Oh,
actually wanted
that's
to
gonna be
talk
awesome.
to Rod about tonight. Yeah, I hope so because Rod actually. If I know you guys know this, but Rod's mother was friends with Whitley Strieber.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask him a few questions but are we waiting on Rod or?
Nope. He's backstage. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up if we're good here. He
Let
looks
us go
good.
ahead and get started.
Yeah. Hi, Rod.
Hey, Rod.
Hey, what's going on? How you
What's going
doing?
on, Rod? How you doing?
What's up, man?
Appreciate you coming on tonight with us.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We kind of talked, back and forth at the conference, and I talked to your wife. She come over and chit chatted with us for a little bit. She's a nice
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's a beautiful soul.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. Like, how did you start with this craziness, this weirdness that we're all into?
I got into it kind of by accident. Growing up, I always believed. I was the kid that really loved the Loch Ness Monster books from the book fair and Bigfoot and all of those things. I was always interested in that stuff, the unknown, from an early age. But, going into the research end of things, or actually, I'll be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. And in the beginning, I was on disability from my job. And, I was out for a few months, and one night I binge watched a channel from a guy from Utah, and he presented evidence in the form of prints, but also wood structures as well, and that was something I had never heard of. When you're ignorant to the subject, it's like you just think, well, there's just one up there in Northern California. They got Patterson Gimlin film. That's it. There's none around here or anywhere else. It's all in Northern California. That's it, right? And come to find out that there's definitely some evidence. And I binge watched all of his videos, and it blew my mind because again, wood structures were not something I knew about. And the last video I watched was him, laying out how he finds his evidence, his trace evidence, and he said, hey, if you think I'm putting you on, you think this is a hoax or, whatever, like, this is the method that I use, and follow it, go out for yourself and find and go and look, right? So the next morning I got up, man, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. Got up and I used the same method that he had laid out for us, and in the video, in the YouTube video. And that same day, I found a wood structure on the day I was trying to find a wood structure, and it blew my mind. And I sat there, and I saved the video of the first wood structure that I documented, and you could hear me, as I'm videoing this thing. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like, I can't believe this. Like, are you serious? Like, I thought somebody was putting me on. I thought this was just something that people did, and examining the pieces that are involved in this. It was an A-frame structure, and it was probably about maybe it was 6 foot tall. There was leaves in the bottom on the floor of that wood structure. It was all compressed, real flat, and these pieces were just huge. And I thought, is it kids? Is it is it Boy Scouts? Is it homeless people? There was nothing around that area that said, people, as far as, cigarette butts or beer cans, or, no human stuff that we would leave, because that's typically what we do, right? We trash stuff and we leave our trash sometimes. And, I didn't see anything like that. And so after that, I was hooked. I kept on. Uh, the next day, I was out again, and the next day after that, and throughout my whole time being on disability, I was out, and I just kept on going and following the creeks and greenways that are in my area,
Mhm.
and that was part of the methodology. It was if there is a habitat that supports big game, and you've got a water source, and you've got some creeks and greenways where you've got some passage that can go in and out, right? You could have a recipe for some cryptid activity, and and that's what I followed, and that's what I've been doing this whole time is just really following and pinpointing a lot of the wood structures and the trace evidence that I find off of a major creek greenway that we have here in San Antonio. And I came to the conclusion, and to me this is just a working theory, and I could be totally wrong, but it seemed to me that these things came in, used the creek as their highway at night, did their hunting, maybe got their kill, moved out into a bigger area right off of that creek, and maybe resides in a thicker area where I can't get to or I haven't been to yet. Or, if, knowing the history of San Antonio, we typically we are a city that is. I mean, we're not known for cryptids. We're not known for Bigfoot, but also too, we've got underground caverns that are underneath San Antonio. So
Mhm.
and more or less, well, not more or less, the Edwards Underground Aquifer is one that is a major underground cavern where we get our water. But that cavern, that aquifer, it stretches from San Antonio all the way up to Austin. And that was an eye opener for me. So I thought, well, maybe these things are residing underground, and then at night they come out and hunt and they get their kill, and then maybe there's an opening somewhere that I don't know about or we just don't know about, and that's kind of what's going on. And that's kind of the idea that I got, and that was kind of the working theory that I have. Now I can't prove it, but it just made sense to me. If you've got a highway in the form of a major creek that goes into the city, miles into the city, pretty much, and out of the city basically, so it goes all the way through the city and goes into other towns. You've got a major highway for animals to travel through, in predatory animals that may hunt, and they have access in and out of the city. And again, that made sense to me. And you know if we're talking about an apex predator with some intelligence, we're talking about a bipedal creature, maybe on average 7 to 8 feet tall, with some know-how and some intelligence. I think that's what they're using. And again, it's something I can't prove, but it makes sense to me, and that's where I've kind of kept it. Most of my research is done out of what's called the Salado Creek, and the Salado Creek is a major creek that runs through San Antonio. It was used by the Native Americans as their highway to go in and out of San Antonio. So again, it made sense to go off of that creek, and then connected to that creek is a water source. It's like a smaller lake or a big pond, however you want to call it, whatever you want to see it as. And then also connected to those creeks and that creek and greenway, the Salado Creek, there are other major wilderness parks where you can't camp, there's no hunting or anything like that. So the whitetail are flourishing, they're healthy. There's nobody really hunting them except for maybe a Sasquatch, I don't know. And so when I started utilizing those creeks and greenways and those wilderness parks that were connected, that's when I found more
Mhm.
evidence of what I believe is Sasquatch activity. It could be, and I always get the pushback of like, well, maybe it's bushcraft class, or people teaching bushcraft, or maybe it's Boy Scouts or homeless. And I always point them towards the size of these pieces that are in these wood structures. Some of them have the root ball system still, the roots still attached to them. They were pulled out of the ground. They didn't grow in that area. And we're talking like 10, 12, 15 feet pieces that are fashioned into a wood structure. So I thought, well, if it's Boy Scouts, we were talking about a team of people to lift these pieces up and put them in either a teepee or wigwam or an A-frame structure. So I kind of almost ruled that out. Now, I'm not going to deny that there are some people that do these things for whatever reason. I don't know. People do weird stuff. You know, I have yet to find anybody in the almost 6 years I've been doing this. I'm talking morning, noon, and night that I'm kind of keeping tabs on these areas. I have yet to see somebody come out and put a piece of wood on, or catch them in the act of building these things. It's never happened. So again, that's something that's kind of a head scratcher for me. And in my videos, I never really come out and say that this is what a Sasquatch did, or this is I can't definitively say that, but it seems very odd to me that I could match up some of my wood structures up against somebody that's up in Oregon that's got pictures of the same style of wood structure, or Northern California or Oklahoma. So I felt like I had something. And, after about a year of doing this, I ran into a gentleman who was friends with a wildlife biologist who wanted to kind of meet me, and they kind of wanted me to show them some of the stuff that I'm finding. So I obliged, and I took them out to a couple of spots. And, the wildlife biologist that was with us, he just looked perplexed. He had no answer for me. And that's when I knew I had something. When I think I take a wildlife biologist out with me that is pretty well versed in the area and South Texas, and knows the indigenous animals, and has no answer for me, then I thought, okay, there's something else going on. So that's where I've kind of kept it. And then, after about a year of doing this again, meeting those gentlemen, showing them, the areas, I started Bexar County Bigfoot on Facebook first, and then went to Instagram, and then now TikTok and YouTube. And that's where I've been ever since. And a lot of what I present are in the form of wood structures. And then I guess, I don't know if you guys saw the pictures of some of the prints that I had as well, and some of the castings that I've been able to do, that I think are pretty significant as well. So, and that's where we've kept it. So we've been traveling throughout these creeks, mapping out, some of our areas. There's some other creeks that are pretty vast and long in San Antonio that we have found other wood structures in as well. So, it seems to me that this phenomenon, I just don't feel like it's people, and again, pointing you towards the bigger pieces that are involved in this. Either we've got a team of people, or we got somebody that's incredibly strong pulling trees out of the ground and making these wood structures.
So real quick, Josh, are you familiar with the area that he's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very much so. And also, just for people to know, he's saying Salado because a lot of people mispronounce it, and a lot of people say Salado. So a lot, when you talk about that, a lot of people are like Salado Creek, Salado, whatever.
Yeah.
And then Bexar is actually how you would pronounce that. A lot of people call it bear, or they'll say Bexar, because people from California come in and they're like, oh, that's in Bexar County. So it's actually Bexar. Yeah, in Spanish, we would call it Bexar. That's what that is. Yeah.
Right.
So people would know it's Bexar County Bigfoot. I just thought I'd say that because, whatever. But Rod's like me. We're both in-betweener beaners.
we are.
We are. We're mixed.
Are,
and so we know the lingo and the Spanish, but you also know the. I had some guy tell me the other day, and I don't know if it was an insult or a compliment. He goes, "You don't look Mexican at all. You look good." Like, oh, thanks. I thought I was looking kind of bad. I feel better now.
Right?
I don't look as Latino as as to your standards. But it was a client. So what am I going to say?
Right.
Exactly right.
Just go with it.
I'm just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just remember, my golf balls are as white as yours.
Right. Exactly.
Whatever.
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh,
I got a question for you,
my
Rod.
goodness.
You're out there in that you're talking about the Edwards Aquifer, and you will see an uptick. And I promise you, we just had a lot of rain, and it missed the lake here in Austin. So they were talking about on the news. They were like, well, a lot of it went further downstream, so it's going to fill up the aquifer. And I immediately thought about that because that area where you're at, it's a high traffic area, big time,
Mhm.
especially if you go from
Yeah.
like Kerrville into San Antonio on that highway. That
Yeah.
area, we get a lot of reports in that area. And every time you get on the show and you talk about, reports or whatever,
Mhm.
somebody will say, hey, I had an encounter in that same area. And so I guarantee you, with all the water that's being flowing that way, you're going to get an uptick in activity for sure.
Yeah.
Because
That's
these
great.
creatures do follow the water, and there's a lot of it around here. You got the Guadalupe over there, then you got
Yeah.
the Camal and
Medina
all that.
River. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of where I've been focused. Part of it is Salado, and then the other part is Leon Creek as well.
Mhm.
And the city is now connecting with paved trails all of the wilderness parks. So
Mhm.
if you wanted to go on a marathon or of all, you could literally take that paved trail from one point. You can go north to south. I mean, you can go south to north, which is interesting. So and then now we've got a park across the street from me that has a land bridge that's it's gotten some notoriety as well. And you kind of just, I guess, part the conspiracy theorist in me kind of sits there and goes, did they really build that land bridge just for the animals, or did they know something that we don't that we know already, or I don't
Sure.
know, but I don't know, but yeah, I would like to really focus on more of the creeks and greenways for me. Like, I can't just go up to a piece of land and go, aha, we're gonna find Sasquatch activity. If it doesn't make sense, right? If there's a piece of property, a wooded piece of property with no way in and no way out except for you driving in, and that's it. That doesn't make sense to me. It has to have passage. There has to have passage. There has to be a water source. That habitat has to support big game, and that's the
Mhm.
mindset that I have, with
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a quick question here, and it's kind of a good point, really. Danita Whitson asked, also, if so much water, does it kind of maybe flood out the underground system and make them surface?
That's a really big aquifer.
Mhm.
It's huge. Wolf, you know a little bit more about that Edwards underground aquifer and how vast it is. I don't think even the experts know every nook and cranny of that
Mhm.
aquifer. I don't believe that. Just like I don't believe that we know everything that goes on in our national parks. We
Mhm.
we we are
Agreed.
what lives in them. We don't know. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean, she could be very well right. Again, it's just kind of a working theory that I've kind of come to with some of the research that I've done.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think I think that when it comes to the aquifer, because a lot of Austin is actually underground, and like if you where you ladies were at this past weekend, all of you guys, Shirts,
Mhm.
right
Mhm.
Mhm.
outside of Shirts, okay, there is a highway right there, or there's a county road, I guess I should say. It's kind of a glorified county road, whatever, and it goes up to the safari park. Right next door to that safari park, I forgot what it's called. It's called, dang it, can't remember the name of it, but it's right there in Shirts, right there. Like it's literally up the highway from where the civic center is. You take I think it's like the next exit,
Mhm.
and you go down that county road, and then it runs into like the safari park. Like if you go straight, then it curves off if you're not planning on going there, whatever. And it's all these wildlife animals and stuff. But right next to that is Natural Bridge Caverns,
Mhm.
and you've probably been there, Rod. The
Yep.
Natural Bridge Caverns very beautiful, but on the tour, like I've taken the tour and then I've walked it on my own too.
Mhm.
They'll tell you on the tour, they'll take you to this spot outside, like there's all these trails out there, and they'll be like, well, that actually goes to another cavern, but we don't. They say something like it hasn't been explored or something,
Right.
Mhm.
and they'll tell you there's like 4 miles of passages down there that they don't go to.
Yeah.
So you got to think about that. What could possibly be living down there? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I had a friend who worked security years ago because they vandalized the Interspace Caverns in Georgetown. Now, if you
Mhm.
look at a map and you go from Georgetown all the way to Shirts, you're talking like 75, 80 miles, whatever it is.
Yep.
Those caverns connect. I
Mhm.
promise you they do. And then they run kind of like around San Antonio to especially out going toward the west. And then it goes down into like where he's talking about the aquifer, and which is an underground water source. right? So whatever could be living down there, I mean, we have no idea. But I had a security guard. I'll tell you a really quick story. It's your floor, Rod. I don't want to take it from you, but
Yeah.
he told me some really freaky stuff. Like when he was there at the Interspace Caverns, they had somebody who had vandalized something. It was like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And he was doing security there. And it's a pretty big dude. His name's Donnell. He's a big guy. He's a friend of mine, weightlifter, still avid weightlifter. And he said, dude, I was in there and I heard these shrieks and these howls. And he goes, and they had left it unlocked so I could go in and do my rounds. And he goes, it's really spooky when you're the only one in there. And he goes, and then there was this one kind of area that was kind of cordoned off or whatever. And he goes, it was just pitch black, like looking into the abyss. And I hear this shriek and this whooping howl coming from it. And so you can imagine, Rod's like a very big, not Rod, I'm sorry, Donnell's a very big African-American dude. Like he took off. He goes, dude, 350 pounds. He goes, dude, I broke the 40-yard dash in 4.1 seconds. I mean, he's like, I was gone, dude. He said he was gone up that track. And he said, dude, there's something there. And so not too long ago, I talked to somebody from the Natural Bridge Caverns, and they were going to give me some information, but they still work, as of 6 months ago, they were still working there. And he said, once I quit working there, I'll give you some information. So we'll see what happens. Same thing with Carlsbad Caverns. Yeah. And of course, Barton's in the chat, and me and Barton have talked a lot about the stories that come out of Kentucky. You got these weird stories that come out of Kentucky and people seeing weird things and these caverns and getting stories of these spider-like creatures that look like they're from the land of the lost, really big, and they're like white, because they've never seen the light of day. And so you wonder about some of these cryptids, like what could be down there, what's dwelling in that area. And like Danita on the chat said, if it rains, something comes up. I mean, because the rain will initially flood down into those holes, but I think that they have a clear path to the surface. And I think that there probably is something like akin to like a waterfall that goes down in there and just kind of fills it up. Yeah. In fact, I know there is. I had people out in the hill country that go spelunking, and they've told me they've seen it, and then if you go further to the west, like the Llano Estacado, there's like these plates, and it's like, I'm not going to get into tectonics and all that, but you can see the different levels and layers. And Texas, of course, was at one time underwater. It was part of a shallow inland sea. So when you look at like the past, like I had one guy tell me, he was like, I was spelunking, and this was out on the other side of Marble Falls, and he gets down in there, and he's like, I could see part of what looked like a dinosaur skull, like it was sticking out, like the top part of it, and he was touching it, and he was like, dude, he goes, this is a skull. Wow. So I mean, and it was probably something that was an underwater like marine mammal, like if you go to the Bullock Museum here in Austin, I encourage everyone to go. That's a really cool place. I used to know one of the curators, but beautiful museum, but they have tons of dinosaur bones there that all come from, a time before, humanity, and when there was, nothing but water and we were underwater,
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, I'm going to show one of Rod's tree structures, a picture that he sent. Let me get to it here real quick. And I find these tree structures pretty interesting. Like, look at that.
Wow.
Like, holy cow.
You did that. Come on now, Rod. You were out there busy doing that.
That's homeless people, dude.
If this was Austin, I'd be like, it's definitely a homeless camp.
I was like, that's one badass homeless person. That's what I gotta say.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, to me, that's a tree structure. That's pretty incredible. Like when I seen that, I'm like, holy cow,
Yeah. And what's sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that, a lot of the times when, and this is something that I've matched up with another researcher as well. What I'll find next to these tree structures or in the vicinity, maybe feet away, are these, what I call the fake fire pits. And it's a consistent thing that I find. And, obviously I don't know what it means, but it's very interesting. You'll have rocks fashioned in a circle, and then you'll have what looks like some type of kindling that's been ripped, like bark that's been ripped out, that's sitting inside of that circle of those rocks. Mind you, nothing has been burnt, and there's no sign of a fire. It's just like a mock-up of like a fire that are a fake fire pit. It's really weird. And come to find out, there's another researcher in oh gosh, up there by Maine, who finds tree structures with the same MO, like it's the same thing. And I'm like, this is very, very interesting. And that's something that's a consistent that I find a lot with these wood structures, these fake fire pits. I have no idea. Maybe they're just mimicking what we do. I'm not sure, or I don't know, but it's very odd.
Yeah. So about how tall would you say that tree structure was?
That one was probably about 12, 15 foot tall.
Wow. Pretty incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You hear a lot about the tree structures and the X's, and I'm just kind of weird when it comes to that, because I feel like, just the acts of nature, can
Sure.
cause the tree to fall and things like that, unless it's a root, turned upside down or something funky like
Sure.
that. But, but what you have, like, that's pretty impressive. And you
It-
sent me
it-
lots of pictures of those kind of
Yeah.
types of structures. So
Yes. Yeah. And I think these things are done with purpose. Now, one thing I did do is I was on a trail, and it was kind of close to a neighborhood, and it was a thicker area. It was in the Salado Creek, and I found what I think is a little kid like little hut, right? A little, it was by some houses, and maybe the parents helped them, whatever. And there's a difference in the consistency of these things when humans build them versus whatever this is that's building them, right? There's more of a uniformity when humans build it versus something that I'm showing you, which is there. There is some uniformity, but it looks very primitive, right? This wood structure that I found, I think the kids built it. It had a tarp over on top of it. It had, little knickknacks inside of it, little shelving, furniture or whatever, chairs and stuff. And that's obvious. That's a person built that. You can tell. When I come up to some of these other wood structures, there's nothing like that there. Nothing. The ground is always very compressed, almost like it's cleaned out. And if there's leaves in there, those are compressed as well, very flat. There's no water bottles or
sure.
soda cans, none of that stuff, right? And so I took the liberty of making a video of that particular little clubhouse, or whatever you want to call it, that I think that kids made, versus in contrast to what I'm showing you. There's a big difference to me. And so when I have somebody that goes, well, that's kids, and I'm like, okay, well, tell me what kid in this day and age is going to get off their phone, number one,
Right.
video games, get away from their home, right? Social media, all that stuff, and go out in the woods and build these things. It doesn't happen. I have 4 teenagers. I'd be hard pressed to get them out in the woods, because they're going to complain. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. Now, growing up, when I grew up in the 80s as a kid, yeah, we went out in the woods and we messed around and made little things and stuff like that. It just doesn't happen like that anymore. So I can kind of rule out the kid thing, unless the parents are helping them,
Sure.
and then also the construction and the size of the pieces that are involved in this. It's baffling. So, what is it? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's a good question out here. William asks, did you find any bird feathers or shiny rocks near the Kanati structure?
Yes, absolutely. You know what? That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Turkey feathers are what I find stuck in, and this is good, and maybe it was from a termite or something, but stuck in the wood, in some of the pieces of wood that are just flared out. I find some of that, but they're usually turkey feathers, and maybe some other birds that I don't recognize, but I do find feathers, shiny rocks. Sometimes I'll find some quartz that are gathered in that area. And some people have said, well, quartz is, a conductor for, some type of energy or whatever the case is.
Sure.
So again, we're finding stuff that I can match up against from another researcher in another state and city, or another area in another state, so either it's the most elaborate hoax known to man, or, we've got some cryptid activity going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick shout out to Eddie and Jen, the blogs, and then some. There were some great guys that we met this past weekend down at the conference, and they have special needs kids, and they're just great people. The kids were too. So
I
just a quick
yeah,
shout
I
out to
saw
them.
them. That was awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So, and then, so here's another good question. What's the best way to know who may have been likely to have made the structures? As in, maybe, what are the telltale signs you think? I know you said with the trash and you kind of described, but what about like,
Sure.
have you come across anything you might believe maybe it's Dogman related structures? I don't even know if Dogman do
Ah,
structures or
you know,
anything like that.
it's funny you say that, because my wife and I, she's my partner. We go out together, and we were out actually yesterday, and I stopped and I said, wouldn't it be something if this whole time we're not we're not chasing a Sasquatch, it's a dog man, because I've heard encounters where they'll come, people will come up to these wood structures, and they'll look at them and be like, what is this? Or they're marveling at it or whatever, and all of a sudden the creature pops out, and it's a dog man. I've heard that. Now I was gonna say, Wolf, I saw some of these woods are haunted episodes. And there was an episode, I don't know if it was the season that you were on, but it was a couple of researchers that went out and found some of these wood structures in their area and had an encounter with the dog man. And so, that got me thinking that, I don't know, it's weird. And the other thing is the last casting that I did was a very narrow foot, and I'm not used to seeing something narrow, as far as the arch and the heel. The toe box opened up, probably about 4, maybe 5 inches wide, but it is, it's pretty long, but it's very, very narrow. And in comparison to a couple of the other casts that I have, it doesn't look anything like what I found in the past, which are
Yeah.
a lot wider, and so that got me thinking that maybe there's some dogman activity. I think I want to say that Aaron Dees from Small Town Monsters, he wrote
Yeah, I know Aaron.
he wrote the Dogman Triangle. He was gracious enough to put me in his book, and then they showed one of my alleged Dogman prints in the documentary at the very end. He had talked to a lady. He told me, this was a few months ago, that claimed she saw a dogman like creature running around in a creek smack dab in the middle of the city. So who knows? I mean, I could very well be chasing a dog. I don't know.
Well, I mean, here's what I'm going to say to that, and this is going to, I don't want to take up a bunch of time, but
No.
it's very like how do I start with? It's very like there's a mixed bag. Okay, when I first started doing this, I would get people telling me that this narrow footprint thing that you're talking about. There was one out in Giddings, which we still think that this is some sort of like what they call a gugwe type creature, because the rancher out there was very adamant that it had no tail. It didn't look like a werewolf, but it did have a little bit of a muzzle, and it didn't look completely ape-like, and the ears were kind of like right here, which is really weird. And then his nephew and his son, but then again, he said there are a couple of potheads, but they know what they saw. They were out there mending fences. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, at first I thought they were out there smoking the doobies, and that's why they were seeing it. And then I saw it, and I knew it was real. And he's kind of a gruff old. Yeah. He's an old gruff old dude, but he gave a very good description. And for somebody who said he couldn't draw, like he took a notepad and kind of sketched a little bit of it. And I said, that's that looks kind of reminiscent of what Barton drew a picture of on Mysterious Kentucky, kind of like that on the cover. I told Barton about it. And we talked about it, and then I showed Ken, and Ken's like, oh, that's weird, because he was going to say that, and then he didn't have an answer. I'm like, oh, stumped you, didn't I? Yeah. But no, I was sitting there going over it, and I said, dude, this guy made a pretty decent sketch. I I don't know what to make of it. But when he told me about the footprints, he said they were sort of a narrow, but up on the haunches, and then when it would walk, it would kind of come down like this,
Wow.
and it was kind of like like heel to toe is how they say, like the natives would say, like white people would walk that way. They would walk on like
Right.
kind of like that because they would try to disguise their prints as much as possible. This could be something that they're doing. The thing that got me though, that really got me was that we were getting, of course, these researchers, they want to believe that it's flesh and blood, especially one dipshit up in Missouri.
Yeah.
He's determined that they're flesh and blood, no matter what anybody says.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, that can be because they have wolf tracks. They look like wolf tracks. And I'm doing, dude, that's stupid because there are reports of these things walking with like look like feet. And so you don't know, we don't even know what we're dealing with.
Right.
So you could be dealing with a Bigfoot, a Dogman, or something in between.
Yeah.
But when you get those wolf-like tracks, then they're gigantic, and you got these weird looking, like toe looking things that come out of it. And then you have in the same area, you'll have those kind of thin, whatever. Well, I'll do you one better. There was a guy up in Michigan, and I need to talk to. He's pretty well known in the community. I'm going to get him on the show. His name starts with the D. I don't want to say his name yet.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, but he was telling me that there were people that were getting reports of they were like, they looked kind of wolf-like, but then, they would kind of become human-like and then go back to being wolf-like. So you would get like this paw and then it would turn into like what looked like a human footprint. And then it would go back to being wolf-like. Wow. What the hell is going on with that? I mean, what you're saying about people seeing things in the middle of town, we now know that there are reports of Bigfoot and Dogman within the city limits of Houston, for sure.
Yeah.
San Antonio, Palmetto State Park, State Park, the smallest state park in Texas, which is also known for the invisible intruder or the glimmer man. People have been pushed by this thing. They've been grabbed by it. I'm sure you know. And then, of course, the state park here, McKinney Falls.
Okay.
Where they filmed the movie Predators with, what's his name? Walter Goggins, one of my favorite actors. And he plays Baby Billy in the Righteous Gemstone.
Oh,
that dude, he was in that, And so there's he's a funny guy, but anyway, I like that show. But anyway, I digress. So the whole thing with that, over there in McKinney Falls, I got several reports of people seeing things, and they couldn't tell me whether it was a Bigfoot or a Dogman, and they kind of teeter-tottered. 4 or 5 people, and they give you 3 different descriptions because they see it really quickly. But me, I'm one of those people that I don't put a stamp on something and say this is exactly what it is. It's a flesh and blood or it's a spiritual thing because we don't know, because I think these things move in between the worlds, and I didn't start out like that. I tell people all the time, I started out very flesh and blood because I thought what I saw was flesh and blood.
Me too.
And now, everybody kind of starts off, and I tell people all the time, I was like, take off the training wheels, because you start off on that little tricycle ride, like, oh, it's a flesh and blood. And that's very childish to just kind of pigeonhole yourself into that, because then you get all these reports. What ends up happening is you close off your mind. So 75% of everything that comes through, you're kicking it out because you're just going to believe, and you're trying to fit everything into your belief instead of expanding into what it really is. So those thin tracks could very well be some sort of Dogman-like species, and of course, if it's some sort of, we say the word shapeshifter. I mean, of course, that's like a dirty word. Everybody's like, oh, but it's the truth. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, and that's a really good point to make, Wolf, because I started out like that myself, and then I thought to myself, well, if it's truly flesh and blood, let's just say if Sasquatch was just flesh and blood, that's it, end of story, it's an undiscovered ape, I think we would have already had one if it's truly like just an ape, right? But I seem to think that these things have some type of some other element to them as well,
metaphysical quality.
I think so. I think so, and I know, and I obviously we're all here just kind of speculating, and I'm basing this off of encounters, first-hand encounters that I've heard people tell. Hey, this thing was right in front of me and it's gone. Where did it go?
Yeah.
I don't. So, I mean, and my motto now And I was much like you described, Wolf. You know, out there going, oh, it's an undiscovered ape and all that stuff. And then I again started getting some more information, going, wait a minute, this is different. There's something else going on here. So
Right.
my motto,
Mhm.
my thing for me is that if you're open to some of it, you have to be open to all of it.
Right.
You can't just tailor make it to fit your narrative. You can't,
Mhm.
because these things will have somebody will have an encounter with something totally different,
Mhm.
you know, up against your belief system, you know. So
Yeah.
it you have to be open to all of it.
Absolutely. You know, you're talking about, you know, these creatures being seen in large cities. There's a report of a dogman encounter down, and if anybody's been to St. Louis, down at the downtown by the Arch, well, that's a well-populated area. So to
Yes,
Right.
it
me, a
is.
flesh and blood creature is going to be seen at some point. There's no way it could have gotten there by hiding or,
Sure.
you know, so to me,
Sure.
there's more to that, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and
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 it
I would get pushback a lot on, because what I present is in the suburban areas. But the creek, the major creek, goes right through it, and there's
Mhm.
wildlife in there, water source. And I would get a lot, you know, I would always get that. You get armchair researchers, you got trolls out there like, there's no way a Sasquatch is going to go in the city. I'm like, how do you know? I'm like, you show me your evidence and prove me
Mhm.
wrong. You know,
Right.
if you do, great. I'll walk away going, you taught me something I don't know, and I'm open to that. But you know, nobody can tell me that. You know, so I seem to think that these creatures are, number one, opportunistic.
Mhm.
I think they're not above dumpster diving. I do think that if there's an easy meal to grab, they'll grab it. And whether if it's around a neighborhood where they can, you know, jump in to the creek and run out, hey, they can do that. And so,
Mhm.
you know, if you look at the Salado Creek, it goes right through the city. So, you know, again, I tend to believe that these things are using that as their highway, and they're going through the city undetected, in
Mhm.
whatever element they're using, whatever paranormal, metaphysical element or whatever it is. I think that's what they're utilizing, is their strengths, and that's why we haven't been able to catch up with one, or have a body. I don't have one in my garage here to go look at and examine, you know. So I mean, it's one of those things where you have to sit there and go, you have to be open to
Mhm.
all of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely you
Well,
do.
I mean, what you were saying about going, you know, using the riverways. Well, when Krista was talking about a sighting in right there at the Arch, eh, it's possible. It's butted up right to the Mississippi. I
Mhm.
mean,
There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah,
it
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
absolutely. It's a
I still
highway.
believe a little, you know, it's not, the dogman was not going to just show up downtown at the Arch. I mean, it's a huge,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
travel and tourist and a lot of nightclubs and things like that down there, you know, and during the day it's busier than heck too. So I just
Right.
don't see one sneaking in all the way downtown. It has to
Yeah.
be more to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And
I fear for Bigfoot and Dogman's safety in downtown St. Louis. I can tell you that.
You and me both.
The Dogman and Bigfoot better be packing. I'm not joking. They better have a
Yep,
semi-auto or
you're not
something.
kidding.
yeah, that's for sure, man. You're gonna run into Nelly and his boys up there.
Yeah.
It's a rough place. I'm not joking, man.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's very rough.
St. Louis
I
ain't no
work in
joke.
downtown St. Louis, so yeah,
Mhm.
I
Oh my
know.
god.
I've been through
Yeah.
St. Louis a few times. I was a tour manager for some bands a while back, and you know, a lot of our stops during any tour with whatever band I was working for was St. Louis, and
Oh yeah.
you had to kind of lock your doors and just kind of just, you know, hey, you know, just
That you do.
mind
All
your
those
P's and Q's,
Lewis's.
man.
Louisville, Kentucky's another one too. I've been through there. It's rough.
Ooh,
Yeah.
man.
Yep.
I had to
Man.
stop to use the restroom, man, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
had to pull out the AK and walk in with. They were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just being. I'm going to fit in. I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to fit in."
Right.
Exactly.
People walking by, they're like, "Oh, nice AK player." I'm like, "Yeah, you too." You got the grenades on you like Rambo, you know.
Right. That's
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you just you know, you just don't want to stick out. You just want to fit in. You don't want to look like a tourist.
That's why you
Right.
got to have the gat right there. Just pull it out and And when you're buying the lotto, be like, I'll take a number 5 lotto ticket. Let's see what you got. That one up there. Oh yeah, that one too.
Number
Just
5.
wave the gun around the guy. He knows the drill.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely. Let me ask
Just
you a
talk
question,
with your
Rod.
dad.
With as much as you've been out, this is kind of a two-parter question.
Sure.
Do you just go out for a few hours, or do you spend days in the same area? And my second part to that is, somebody had asked in chat, do you ever see like any orbs or anything like that while you're out?
So the areas that I go to, unfortunately, I can't camp unless I'm really stealthy, which I'm actually considering doing like a stealth camp in an area. I think the worst case scenario is that maybe, I don't know, I'll get slapped with the fine or whatever. And I told my wife, like, if that happens, and hey, I'll take the hit, but just for the sake of trying to capture some evidence or something on video. Those areas, they're wilderness parks. They're actually they're wildlife areas that are protected by the city. There
Thank
may
you,
be
Josh.
there may be an animal, there may be some plants that are maybe rare, or they're trying to regrow, or whatever the case is. So there's no hunting, there's no camping in these areas. Now there is one area on the southeast side of San Antonio which has kind of been our focus has been shifted to that particular spot, and it's close to, well, it's right next door to a wilderness park that runs alongside that creek, but it's separate from the park, so it's not actually park. It's just a big piece of land. It's vast. The plant life is super healthy there. All I can describe, the way I describe it is, it's like Jurassic Park, because some of these plants are
Mhm.
huge. The underbrush is thick. There's a water source that goes right through it. It's clear. It's from the spring. It's clear water. There's freshwater clams. There's crawfish in there. There's largemouth bass. There's white-tailed deer. You've got all kinds of food source running through there, right? And that is an area that we have discussed about maybe camping, staying overnight, and seeing what we can find, or what we encounter in that area. Because that area specifically, we got a growl. We got a couple of growls
Mhm.
that I could not place with any other animal that is indigenous to our area. So, the one thing we don't have here in San Antonio are bears. So that's the go-to for a lot of people. They're gonna, like, well, it's a bear. I'm like, in San Antonio, Texas? Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. You rarely hear about a cat, a mountain lion. Rarely hear about that. I know they're out there, but they're really elusive as well.
more to the west,
There
more
you
to
go.
the
So,
south and to the west of Mhm.
So this growl was very low. All I can say is that whatever it was, it sounded like it had different vocal cords encapsulated in one creature. Because I heard something that resonated like an 808 bass hit, boom, right, and it hits you, boom, and then it sounded like a low guttural growl at the same time. It was really odd. And once you get hit with something like that, it instills fear like that.
Sure.
Like I was frozen, right? My wife turned around and looked at me and said, "Did you effing hear that?" I'm like, "Yes, I did." And I'm like, "Hold still." As we were holding still, there was whatever it was across the river that was growling at us. Up on the right hand side, there was a ridge that was probably about 12, 15 foot tall, and you could see saplings at the top of it, and there was something else at the top of that ridge flanking us, moving back and forth. I could see the saplings, the treetops moving back and forth a little bit, and I could hear some footsteps. I couldn't make out if it was bipedal or not, but something was flanking us on the right, and then this thing on the left across the river was growling at us. So that's kind of our focus. It's been shifted to that area, and we're talking about possibly trying to find an area where we can camp at least for a night, just to feel it out, and see
Sure.
what we got.
Awesome.
I have a question for you, Rod. In these areas where you're doing thank you for that donation. In these areas where you're doing like your research and whatever, do you ever get do you field or do you get reports of like balls of light or UFO activity?
You know what? No balls of light. we have my wife has she has seen we've seen 3 UFOs, and not in our areas, separate from the research areas that we go to, but no orbs or any UAPs or UFOs in conjunction with the area that we're at least not yet anyway. I will say this: we did go out on a night investigation of one particular park that we kind of snuck into, and we were kind of following the creek again, and it was probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and something overhead flew by us, and I thought it was a bird, but it it wasn't a plane, and it wasn't a bird. It just sounded really odd. It was like a really weird, like really quick, and it hit some trees, and then it disappeared. I have no idea what it was. We've only had something like that happen. I can't really tell you what it was, but it was really weird. So far, that's all I can say that that we've encountered in any way of like a UAP or whatever. We really couldn't tell what it was.
Gotcha. Gotcha. But I know, Josh, you wanted to talk to him about his past history and his mother, who his mother knew.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to talk to him. I'm good. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, Rod,
Get ready
seriously.
to say,
Yeah.
He like looks straight into the camera. I never said that. And you just rewind it, and you're like, "Yeah, I said that. Yeah, I said that." Like on Dave Chappelle, like I didn't do that to his couch.
Yeah.
I did that to his couch.
Yeah, I did that.
Rick James. No, no. What I was going to talk to you about was Whitley Strieber. I'm a big fan of Whitley Strieber, and of course, real quick, I'll give a quick rundown. Communion, the book, obviously became a movie with the guy that talks like this, Christopher Walken, right?
Yeah,
and there's these scenes where he's dancing with these aliens and stuff, and it's a really weird gig. But I was talking to a guy about the near-death experience that he had, and he mentioned these elves, but he called them dwarves, and I said, well, there's people that talk about elves when they die, or and then it's similar to the whole DMT. They'll take like DMT. In fact, I have a friend that does this down in Costa Rica, and he gets people off hard drugs. And one of them was a good friend of mine who works out in the oil field, and he told me, he said, "Dude, I was on meth." And our mutual friend got me off of it. And he said one of the things he does, he tells you that you're going to have these weird experiences, or something weird is going to happen. And I had a conversation with him one day, and I told him, I said, what you do, it kind of mimics the near-death experience. He says, very much so. And it goes in time. This is such a weird thing. It goes in time with what Whitley talks about in Communion, because, and you see it in the movie too, those little weird looking dwarf type creatures that appear with the aliens, the grays. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes they're like blue skinned, sometimes they're greenish blue, whatever. But that happens in near-death experiences more times than I can count. I talked to somebody the other day about it. This guy lived in Idaho, and he fell down an embankment, hit his head, and now when he got to the hospital, he wasn't breathing, and he had it, and luckily he had people with him, and it wasn't like way out into the middle of the woods. It would have been worse if they'd have gone further deeper in. And so this guy Chuck, he tells me this story, and he says, "Dude, I saw these weird-looking." Dwarf-looking creatures, but they had these weird pointy floppy ears, very reminiscent of what the DMT trip is. And my friend down in Costa Rica that does that, getting people off drugs, whatever. And then you got Whitley that talks about it with the alien abduction. Now that can't be a coincidence, and how it ties into what you're saying, I'm going to bring it home, folks. It's very odd, because you're talking about creatures, beings, whatever, that kind of move between the physical and the metaphysical. Get this. Whitley Strieber, right? Abduction, whatever. He sees these little short, like duendes, as we say in Spanish, or manitos, Yeah. And they're very physical, right? They're a part of the abduction phenomena. You hear about it pretty common. I'm going to be talking about that on Saturday. Yeah. But then, they're being abducted physically, but they're there. They're physically there.
Right.
But then people take DMT and they go into this alternate state of being and they see them, right, out of their body. But then you also get the near-death experience where people are definitely out of their body and they see
Yeah.
these same beings matching the
Mhm.
same description. That's not a coincidence. Now tell me how Whitley could see that
Mhm.
and see these beings as a physical thing, almost like right there. I mean, like almost like um, they're very much a part of our reality. Like they're almost like how do you say it? Like they're absolutely in both worlds,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
can appear to be in a physical form. And
Yeah.
people have even talked about them touching them and everything, even when they're
Right.
out of their body and they feel it.
Yeah.
So what if these beings are just another type of entity that can move in and out of reality? Just like, why, if that is so possible that it's actually probable,
Hmm.
then why not Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever
Mhm.
these other flying humanoids, creatures, cryptids? You
Sure.
get these creatures that can manipulate. Now there's a haunting. I just was like going over a case earlier today, and the lady had something knocking on her window, tapping on her window. She
Yeah.
would look, and she's like, "I'll be damned." It looked like she lived near Gettysburg, so for one thing,
Oh, wow.
and it looked like a Civil War soldier. And she kept saying that, and then she'd look, and it was gone.
Wow.
And this went on and on and on for years. And then she saw it just walk right through her house, right?
Whoa. Whoa.
Well, her granddaughter, who was staying with her, had been going through abduction scenarios for a while. She was 14 at the time she was staying with her. Her parents had separated, and the dad had abandoned and moved to California. So what was crazy, the granddaughter was seeing this guy like he was a flesh and blood being.
Right.
And then she was having these abduction scenarios with these grays. And so once the granddaughter moved in, then this woman tells me, she's like, I was seeing these beings walking through my hallway,
Yeah.
and I was seeing this Civil War ghost like moving around my house, that like they were all flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And she said they became more flesh and blood and more real to me whenever the granddaughter was staying with her. Now,
Wow.
there's got to be something to that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think these beings can live in the flesh and they can live in the spirit. And I think that they
Yeah.
actually, their true form, their true state of being is in the spirit. I believe that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that what you get, and now why is it okay for a haunting, a ghost to be able to manipulate, touch, and move, like literally like knock stuff off of the walls
Right.
and,
Right.
like in fact, we were eating dinner with Lyle Blackburn. Now, if you talk to Lyle about his haunted house,
Yeah.
he was doing shots of tequila with his girlfriend, and he tells me something just like something smacked it right into the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, these things can manipulate uh physical things. Like ask Barton.
Yeah.
Barton knows. I've lived in a house like that, and it would just break stuff. Used to work at a bar, a nightclub, and stuff would just break. They would shatter things.
Yeah.
Now, why is that happening? That can happen, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's what that's a ghostly haunting thing, whatever." Why wouldn't Bigfoot be the same way? Why wouldn't it be? Why would Dogman not be the same way?
Right. Right.
If aliens are on that same level, then why not Bigfoot and Dogman? Everybody thinks it's all separate, but it's not. It's all connected.
Mhm.
I think you've got a good point. I think it is all connected. And again, what I have to go off of are just other encounters from other people, and I again, like when I got into this again, I thought it was just an ape, but hearing
Me too.
people in their firsthand encounters, it's not the case.
Mhm.
I think to your point, Wolf, that yeah, I think it's possible that these things can go in and out of our world into their world or whatever it is, and appear in different areas, and disappear. And I've never experienced that, but as I've traveled along, and gone through, different areas, different spots, I can see where that could happen because of the prints that I've casted. It's like maybe one or two, and then they kind of fade off. They don't. It's not a trackway that's consistent, right? It's linear. It's this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But I've got. Okay, I'll give you the first cast I did. It was one good one that I was like, oh man, this is perfect. I'm going to cast it. I look about 3 foot away from it in line, and it's kind of like an imprint of the same foot, but it's lighter, and I can't cast it. And then the next one is like, it's like non-existent. It's like almost like an outline. And I'm sitting there going, if this thing is that big and that heavy, why am I only getting one print? You know?
Yeah.
Are they just kind of fading off and just going into that other, a portal? I'm not sure, but and that's the case with the second print that I had about 8 months ago. I did. It's a little small one, and I suspect it might be a juvenile. That's the only thing I can think of, and it was one really good print, and I looked again in line because I know that's kind of a linear type of that's kind of how they walk, right? Nothing. And I'm like, why is there only one good print? And then the rest of it, there's nothing. Where are they going? What is going on? So that got me thinking, and about that whole, like, maybe they are a creature that can go from our world to theirs, or whatever the case is, because the prints that I find, it's like maybe one, maybe two, and then they kind of almost fade off sometimes. And I'm like, why is that happening? I have no idea. I can only point towards, something like, Wolf said, metaphysical, paranormal. I don't know. It's very interesting.
There's a somebody in the chat that just said something here that might be interesting, Rod. It says William Baez or Bays. He says, my native ancestors and elders say Bigfoot are flush with great spiritual powers. And that spiritual power just could be that they can move in and out of our realm. I mean, and
it could be right.
I mean, I've dealt with a lot of alien abduction. I've done a lot of work on that, and it started out as a sideline, kind of like to my cryptid work. And I thought, I lived in a house that was haunted. I had the personal experience of that. 15-year-old, I saw a dog man, right? Haven't had really encounters with Bigfoot. I was with my wife one time, and she saw one very clearly.
Wow.
And the people that worked out there had claimed that there was something, but I saw like maybe a quick, whatever. So I don't really claim it.
Yeah.
And but there, because it wasn't my experience, because I had to turn the truck around. But I can say this with the alien abduction thing. There was a woman that was abducted. She was from not Spokane, Oregon. Oregon starts with an S. Salem, Oregon. Sorry, I'm eating yellow. I'm like, you remember? I'm like, you got it. No, Salem, Oregon. Trying to wake up Brandy. Brandy looks tired. You look like you just quit coffee. You tired? You look tired.
Well, actually, what I'm doing is I'm sitting here and I'm trying to absorb all this, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, that's something to think about. Yeah. So, I'm listening and learning too. So,
no, you're very quiet. I was like, Brandy's very quiet. But so no, there was this woman that was telling us this, me and my guys here, and telling us this story. And she said that whenever she had been abducted, she was being taken out of her bedroom. And I get this, she looks back and she sees her body laying there. Wow. She saw it laying there. Her name was Dorothy. And I said, they weren't taking you to Oz, were they? They took her somewhere. She said everybody jokes about that, but it's but she says that she turned around and since then she's gotten into remote viewing and doing some other things, but she thinks that it became part of who she was because of the abduction, but she could see her body laying there. And she says, well, where am I at? And these were their stereotypical grays, which I call biological robots or mercenaries or whatever. And she said that they told her, like, when you're out of your body, you're not heavy, you're still, but she was still in like a physical, what looked like her body, like an avatar of her body.
Okay.
So we don't really know. I think that when you go into the fourth level, like the fourth density, I don't want to get too new agey or whatever.
Right.
But that's when you get to that level, that's a whole nother, like a ball of wax. And then it goes into like the fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever. And so you can call it the fourth dimension, the fourth reality, the fourth density, whatever.
Right.
But you're still it's sort of an intermediate zone. It's like purgatory. Yeah. But then the fifth level, and it is really purgatory if you listen to Catholicism or even Islam, various aspects of it. It is like that intermediate zone where you're at. And so they told her basically like, we're taking you out of your body because we don't need your body for this particular encounter. And, at this point, we will come back and there'll be a time when we need your body because they were doing things.
Right.
But they were, telling her right now, we just need to talk to you. And it's much easier to deal with you and communicate when you're on our plane of existence. So they are basically telling Dorothy, hey, we exist in this plane, and this is our true state. This is where we're at. And so they're in that level. Now, I've heard a lot of spiritual teachers, one in particular, this guy, and he literally lived in Kathmandu. Now, it sounds like a goofy, silly name or whatever, but back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of these beatniks went there because they wanted to get enlightened, man, and he just did a lot of hashish
with these
and
monks,
got high.
Right?
Yeah, well, a lot of them just got really high and thought they found something, but whatever, it was, they thought they were really doing something in Nepal, whatever. But it was crazy because this guy, he lived there for a long time. His name's Maurice. He's a really cool dude. And we were talking one day on the phone. I had talked to him sometimes. He's like a spiritual teacher. And he's not one of these grifters that tells you, hey, man, what you want to hear. I see, your future. No, he's not like that.
Right. Yeah.
He's actually able to see things. And he said, one of the things that he learned about the different levels, he said, typically the nastiest entities exist in the third and fourth densities. And after you get that, they go into the fifth density. They can't go beyond the fifth density. They will literally be destroyed, like disintegrate, because if you get past that, that's a heavenly realm. And now it talks about in the Quran that the jinn will actually go up to the highest level that they can go to, which is the fifth, and they will spy on the angels. Now, once you get into the sixth, seventh levels, that's the highest levels of heaven. Then the eighth level is only reserved for God,
Right.
But they believe in multiple heavens. But there in Kathmandu, Maurice learned the same thing. He says, dude, I learned that there are several levels of heaven. Now, one of the things that he actually believes, and don't get it twisted, this is not what I'm saying I believe, but what he believes is that there is the God, the Godhead, as he calls it, that exists in this realm. He is the highest, the most high that you can go. But there is an even higher level that goes on out into the ether, into the multiverse, which basically somebody that supersedes him and is actually the one in charge of putting God, which is just multiple aspects of himself, in charge of these worlds. When it gets kind of weird, because if you look in Hinduism, not to get, like I said, all out there, I'll bring it back. Sure. But Brahman is just, there's 1,000 different aspects of him, but that's all just one deity. So we, with our human brains, we can't really comprehend that, and we can't process that, especially when you're living in the third density, which is one of the lowest levels, that you can be on, and you're in this flesh suit. There's no way with your human brain that you can comprehend this. Now, there are ways to go into the spirit and actually move in and out of the spirit and comprehend things. And there's ways to read people's auras too. And a lot of it involves a deep meditative sleep state that when you focus on things. And I actually thought about this at one time and like teaching a class on that and showing people how to do it. But then I thought if you spook people though, then they'll be like, witch, you're a witch. And then that's it. They'll start throwing, poop at you, because they don't understand it. They're not going to grasp it, and they're not made for it. So it would have to be something that would be, but if you were interested though, there is a way, and I've talked to multiple researchers about this as of late, to actually look more through the mind's eye at these things. And you can kind of get a picture and a bead. You can get a bead on what you're dealing with, because I taught this to somebody not too long ago, and it's nothing spooky dooky, whatever. It's just basically focusing your energy, your ki, and basically pushing it out there. Ki or chi, Japanese, Chinese, whatever. And and then you can get a bead when you close your eyes and you kind of fall into this sort of halfway meditative state. You don't want to go all the way in. I don't go all the way in. But you can get a read on what you're dealing with if there's something out there. But you have to be in a very safe and comfortable place. And so once you've been in a close proximity to one of those places, then you go back. There are some things, some exercises that you can do, and you can get a feel for what was there, because you'll actually be able to go back and forth and read the timeline. It's kind of tricky, and I've never said this before on any show. This is exclusively as it is on Blondes and Booze. I always save something for whatever, but I'm not even going to talk about this on my show. I'm just saying it right now. But between me and you, Rod, you heard it here. I can help you with that a little bit, and I can give you a little bit of those, because it's working for some other researchers. Now,
Yeah.
of course, you're going to have detractors. Are going to be like, he's putting black magic spells on people, and they're saying demons, and everything's a demon, and
Right.
demon.
Right.
Because
Right.
these are a bunch
Yeah.
of toothless, come on,
Right.
that's what they are,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
You're going to have
Yeah.
that, but there's a way to do it. I'm telling you.
Wow.
And talking to you and sitting next to you for a few hours there when we were, I really got a feel for like you and who you were.
Yeah.
Your energy was like not oppressive at all. Like I didn't feel anything,
Yeah.
from you. You seemed like a very even keeled and nice guy and somebody
Yeah.
who's honest and wants to learn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I would tell you that, yeah. So because some
Yeah.
people, when you meet them in person and you talk to them, and then they're just kind of looking at you like, I got all the answers. I don't need your help. In fact, you should go help. Just go on.
They're the ones that
I
are
hear
the
that.
self-proclaimed experts, right?
Exactly. And then you get that
Yeah.
arrogant vibe from them. And if you try to tell them something, they're going to turn it around and they're going to be like,
Yeah.
well, Josh Turner wanted my help and I told him go to hell. And it's like, that never happened. I asked you what you wanted on your pizza and it became a home invasion. Sorry, that's how that works. But yeah, but there's people
Yeah.
like that, and
Yeah.
they will
Yeah.
not,
There is.
absolutely. But you're on the right
Yeah.
track, and seeing it that you're like right there
Yeah.
down the highway from me, dude. I mean, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, I'm open to just kind of, I consider myself a student still. I don't ever
Absolutely.
put expert next to my name. There's no such thing to me.
Right.
I'm always learning, and I always try to approach all of this with humility. I'm not self-absorbed to where I know I have all the answers. I don't know a lot. I haven't even scratched the surface. What was that? Why are-
I thought you were doing that. I was like, Rod's like, I'm not an expert. And like,
I didn't do. Yeah, I did not do that. That was weird. Okay.
Are you on an iPhone?
Yes.
Yes. There you
Okay,
go.
just put two thumbs up.
Oh, put what? Put two thumbs
Put
up.
two thumbs
Like
up.
this.
Just two thumbs up.
Hold it there.
Like this.
You just hold it still.
Okay.
We
It's
figured
not
this out.
doing it.
It's not
No?
working.
Try one. Oh,
There it
it's
is.
not working. There it is. Yeah.
there it is.
The two thumbs up will give you the fireworks. We figured
I
it out.
I thought he was going to burst into song. Like he was going to back up and then be like, I'm
Yeah.
not an expert. And start
Yeah.
dancing around.
The backdrop drops and then there's like dancers in the back. And I'm just
Confetti.
like, I got jazz hands going.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff. I am definitely. I'm always open to everything when it's concerning cryptids and everything that comes along with it or whatever. Because again, I always consider myself somebody that is still learning. I
Mhm.
still consider myself a newbie. I really don't consider myself a tenured, expert of any of this at all, because the hard truth is that none of us really know, honestly, everything about the subject. So I have to approach it with that humility and that honesty. And I go, was it really a cryptid that did this, or was it somebody? What's going on? Like I have to try to I almost try to debunk myself in a way. And that's how I approach things, and I think when you're talking about spiritual stuff too as well, Wolf. I mean, it's interesting. I was just talking to my my son about growing up with my grandmother. My grandmother made a living reading tarot cards, and we had people that would come in, and then there was other things that lived in that house that I had encountered that were really odd, really weird. And growing up I had experiences with what they call sleep paralysis or whatever, and then I wake up and there's scratches on my neck that are like
man.
that are
Wow.
burning like fire.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
fire. They're
Low level entities.
thin,
Yeah.
three fingered scratches right here.
Mm-hmm.
And something held me down in my bed. They used my blanket to pin me down, and all I could see was black as I looked up. And so and all that stuff honestly sent me into I went to the hospital because it messed with my head.
Sure.
It oppressed me so much.
How old were
so
you?
much.
How old were you, bro?
God, dude, I was like 42, 41. You know,
Yeah.
I'm 49 right now. You know, so I mean, so a lot of the stuff that I look back on, I go, was it a path that I was on to bring me to this? With all of that spiritual weird stuff that I experienced, was it guiding me that way, or you know what? I don't know, but you know, I think sometimes as we experience some of these things, we may have something residual that's left within us because of what happened to us, and maybe that's something that we can use to our advantage. I'm not sure. I'm just speculating. Maybe I don't know. So you know, it's as far as the Sasquatch being, you know, interdimensional things like that. You know, I'm definitely looking at it in that sense as well. But I also do know that there's been hair samples that are that, you know, up against the DNA bank that have no answer for, or I've heard of blood samples where it's come up as ape and human DNA, and then there's another strand of DNA that they cannot recognize at all because it doesn't match up with anything in the DNA bank. You know, so I think we're dealing with something that maybe can go back and forth, you know, in a physical form, and then kind of go back to, you know, its spiritual form or whatever. You know, I don't
I
know.
think that it would be very interesting to talk to you about some of these and kind of put it together, because a lot of people, unbeknownst to themselves, and I even told Lyle this before, not when we were eating dinner, but I've told him
Yeah.
this before in passing. I think that what attracts people to monster hunting and going into these things, and I've told Ken's a very much a flesh and blood aper type person, but not with
Right.
Dogman. He believes Dogman
Right.
is something different.
Yeah.
But I think that you're seeing a transformation in this field just in general, because I've explained to a lot of these guys, you know, that like you might have heard me talking to Ryan Edwards about it too. He was sitting right
Yeah.
across from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you're attracted to these things because there's something in your spiritual essence that's telling you, hey, there's something not right here. You know, this
Right.
is not completely. So we
Right.
need to take a look at it and delve into it. And when you start
Yeah.
going into it, you start to learn, you know, not only about the subject, but about yourself too, and why
Right.
you're attracted to it, you know. And
Right.
I know Lyle jokingly was like, well, look at my band Ghoul Town. That's why, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, well,
Yeah.
there again, Lyle, though, why
Yeah.
were you attracted to the Ghoul Town thing? My brother was very much into this kind of stuff, and he was in a metal band, and he used to sing and he plays guitar like crazy. And so I told him, I said, you know, there's a reason why we started doing this and why we made the map at the not LBL, the Devil's Backbone.
Right.
And we did all the different sightings, like from the east to the west with the Bigfoot and the Dogman. The blue push pins were the Bigfoot, the red were Dogman. I talked to David Wedley about it too. What we need to do is get you over here to Austin, and I can take you into Central Texas, some of these places where we've had stuff happen.
Oh yeah,
I
I'd love
took
to.
one of the directors from the NADP, Art Vyers, and I took him to some of the locations. But
Yeah.
we were, you know, we had to do it really quick because it was daylight and whatever. But
Yeah.
we could plan it and have it, because I'm going to be working on a documentary hopefully in this spring if I can get my stuff going. You know, with this, I have a build going and I got my job, but.
Yeah.
And it's going to involve David Weatherly, and I would love to have you on board, and we could
Oh,
go
man.
and I could show you some stuff at the Devil's Backbone.
Yeah.
And Eric Palacios from Media Palace, really cool
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. I was on.
Yeah.
I told you I was on with Eric, and he put me on his I guess his show that he had, or I guess maybe it was a one-off that he was doing, but he got a hold of me. He said, "Hey
The
man,
Beasts of Brushy Creek.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
He's
he
like,
does
dude,
good work. He's a good friend of mine,
Dude,
man.
he's a nice. He really is a good guy, and he
Yeah.
got a hold of me. He's like, "Hey, dude, what you're finding is like crazy. This is in San Antonio." I'm like, "Yeah," and that's kind of the thing that everybody, like at the convention, people come out. This is in San Antonio. I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "There's no way," and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm showing you right now.
There's
like,
a history of it. I mean, there's a history of it out west.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
so-
look at like you got to do some research going into that western corridor there, going toward Kerrville.
Okay.
I even had a guy who contacted me, and I thought he was, you know, I was like, "Tu tienes carajo, man, crazy man." Believe me, man. But I'm like, he told me though, he said, "Mateo is a werewolf, dude," and I thought, "Come on, man, for real, like you're playing with me, dude." Then
Yeah.
it's whatever. And you know, he was like, "No mentiras, for real," you know. And so I
Yeah.
literally talked to this guy. he told me this crazy story, and I wouldn't have believed the word of it if it wasn't for a friend of mine and my brother's named Dax, who's from Finland. He moved back to Finland, but he did the same thing. He was dabbling in something you shouldn't have been playing with, and
Right.
he unleashed something that looked like smoke, but it turned into like a black goat man type creature.
Ooh.
And this dude did the same thing. And then he said his uncle was literally undulating on the ground in some sort of mid transformation, and it looked like something black crawling all around on top of him, like going all over him,
Oh.
And it
Ugh.
was years
Mm-mm.
before Game of Thrones. Okay. And so he was like, there was something on my uncle, man. And he goes, this was crazy.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it got into him, and then it began to change him. Like
Yeah.
and like he would go at night and take off his clothes and walk into the woods, and then they would hear howling and all kinds of stuff,
Whoa.
And yeah, and then there was a woman, it was an African American woman who used to make the commute all the time, and she talked to us, and she said that she had an encounter with what was a highly aggressive and agitated, basically a pissed off Bigfoot that
Wow.
attacked her car when it broke down the side of the road. Which really
Oh.
interesting though that the way the car broke down. Now you get people saying, yeah, I was on the side of the road and something attacked me. And I always ask them, like, how did your car break down? And it's always like something electrical or something
Right.
was wrong.
Yes.
They're like,
Yep.
what the hell? So something messes with it. And then this
Yeah.
creature appears. I don't think it's a coincidence because the flesh and blood people are going to say, well, what are the odds that their car battery died and then a Bigfoot comes out and attacks them? I said, that's because you're looking at it from an aper standpoint. You're
Right.
not looking at it from what is going on. Something
Right.
caused that battery to die and
Right.
for that to be there so that they could come out and gather energy points by terrorizing them or
Yep.
try to get them out of the car and eat them. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I mean,
It's interesting. When I was telling you guys about that growl that we got 2 growls, and then there was something
Right.
flanking us up on this top ridge, which makes sense. You're going to take the high ground, right, to attack
Right.
your right. Okay, so this was on the high ground, and I thought, man, I need to get my phone out, my camera, and start videoing. So when I started videoing up on that top ridge, because the saplings are moving back, and I'm like, dude, there's something moving these trees. What the hell is it, right? It stopped when I pull my camera out. I take it away, it starts back up. Pull it back out, stops. And so, when I started talking to somebody about this, they're like, well, what, did you get video of it? I mean, come on. I'm like, yeah, but it's different when you're in the moment. It's totally different. Like, I was like, I was thinking, when you're in that moment, I got some lower guttural growls here, which don't feel good at all. I dare I say it was maybe some type of infrasound, maybe, I don't know. It hit me pretty good, and I'm freaking scared. The last thing I'm thinking about is pulling out my damn phone and taking videos and going, oh yeah, let me just stand here real quick. Maybe this thing's just going to show itself, and and maybe I wasn't thinking in those terms and just trying to get my wife out safe. That's what I wanted to do first and foremost. But I just found it odd that when I pulled out my phone and tried to video this thing on the top ridge or the movement, it stopped. Pull it back, it went, kept on doing its thing, and then I would pull it away, stop. Or I would pull out the camera, it would stop. It was just really, really odd. So maybe there's something there with frequency, or I don't know.
One of the comments right there, James Fatke. James says maybe when they come through a portal, electronics are maxed out from the energy.
Could be.
I mean,
But here's another thing too. So I always used to get this. Well, put out a game cam. Put out a game cam.
yeah.
I don't. And maybe some people have caught a couple of things on game cams, but it seems to me that there's far and few of the footage and proof of these creatures off of game cams. I think it seldomly happens. I feel like these things can see IR. I think they can. I think they can see on that spectrum as well. So I started deploying voice recorders. I got a little voice recorder, like a little, I was like a JBL or something. It had 2 condenser mics that are right there, and it picks up everything. And I would set it to run for about maybe 12, 13 hours. From maybe 8 p.m. on to the morning 8 a.m. or I don't know, whatever, right? And I would find a spot near a wood structure or a place that I felt that was active, and hide it, turn it on, and then move off, and then come back the next day, pick it up, and then sit down and sit through the audio. Well, when my wife and I were sitting through the audio, we noticed that there was this really high wind that came through this holler, and because that's where I put it, in this holler where we had found about 5 or 6 wood structures that were just grand in stature. So this wind is like a violent wind came through, right, and then it sounded like rain, like this hard rain that was going on, right? But yet, when I went to go grab the voice recorder, nothing was wet, nothing was damp, nothing, right? So when you hear this rain and this wind, it stops. And when it stops, there's nothing making noise. There's no bugs, nothing. And then you start hearing bipedal footsteps. So my mind immediately went to, it's a portal, and they came through, and that's the sound that it makes, and that's what we're hearing. I don't, and that's kind of where my mind went. Do I know for sure? I don't, but there was no water, there was no dampness. It sounded like rain, and it was a heavy wind, and then it stopped, and then you hear the footsteps. And
Wow.
I don't know. I got a couple of grunts as well from it, and I've actually posted it on my Instagram if you want to check it out. Bear County Bigfoot on Instagram. I try to boost the level of that vocal as much as I could, and it sounded like it was very rhythmic, and it sounded like some low grunts. It was like just really rhythmic. And I try to match it up against something that may be indigenous. I thought, well, it's a hog, and then I listen to samples of different hogs or raccoons or any foxes or whatever, because foxes make some weird noises, right?
Yeah, they do.
So yeah, they make all
Yes,
kinds of
yes.
weird noises, right? So nothing really to me matched up, or maybe I wasn't looking in the right spot. And then I bounced it off a couple of other guys that are researchers that have some history in this whole thing, and one of them went through all of the scenarios of, okay, is it this? Is it that? Do you have this? Do you have that? Nope. Yeah, nope. And then after we exhausted all of that, he was like, I have no idea. And then I sent it to another guy that I know who is an author, and he's a researcher as well. And he right away, he was like, it sounds like an ape. And I'm like, huh, all right, cool. So, are these things traveling through a portal? And was that something that, is that the sound that it makes? I don't know, but I found it very odd that, this violent wind came through, and it sounded like it was raining. It stops, it dissipates, and then the footsteps come right after it. I don't know.
Right.
Weird.
You got a couple of comments. Samuel Lemon talks about Edgar Casey called the one minds, the Akashic records of these beings are advanced enough they could read us all the time. And I get what you're saying. And like these things, I've thought about that too with like Bigfoot, Dogman. Like if one of them sees and knows, maybe the others can, because they're like a hive.
Right.
I think that would be very beneficial to them if they could do that. There's a hive there.
Yeah.
A hive a little different than a pack. A pack isn't connected like that. But, I think these beings possibly being from underground, they're going to have a different type of the way that they are,
Right.
And I think that that's what they can do. And that's why people talk about being marked, and they'll be seen by one of these beasts, and they'll move hundreds of miles away. I mean, literally, this one lady moved from Arizona, from Nebraska or something.
Right.
And she was telling Tony fielded this report. He's one of our co-hosts. You didn't meet Tony at the conference or at the dinner.
Yeah.
But and she told Tony that she was followed, but these creatures that she was seeing, they weren't the same thing. She's like,
Wow.
They were not the same. They were the same, like species looking, dogman looking creatures, but not the same one. The one that she initially encountered in this cornfield was like a big gray alpha male looking one, and this other one she saw was like a brown, weird looking one, and then there was a black one, and so it brought up the question between me and my old co-host who passed away, and Anthony and Tony. We were all debating one night: are these things able to? Do they have a hive mind?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it could be one of them sees you, and then they know you, and that you're marked. I don't know.
Yeah. I heard an encounter of a dogman and a Sasquatch working together.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody
That
had
happens more times you can count.
The Sasquatch was calling the shots.
Mhm.
And what it was that
Yeah.
they were after two women that were hiking or jogging through a trail. This guy happened to catch it from a distance, and he made out what he thought looked like an ape, and then a dog jumped out and right beside him, and he was pointing. The Sasquatch was pointing at these ladies, and the dog man shook his head and took off. He actually was able to alert the ladies. I don't know how. Or maybe he was close enough, and they were able to get away. But I've heard of them two working in conjunction or working
Mhm.
together. So
Martin Groves encounter
That's just
involved
what
them.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You ladies know.
Yep.
You guys, how long does because you said an hour and a half. How long do
We usually go an hour and a half.
yeah.
Okay. Are you Rod, do you need to get out of here or
We're-
what?
Well, my phone is kind of dwindling down on battery. I'm at 40%, so I don't know if
40%. You
Yeah,
got plenty of time. That's another
You think?
hour's worth of time right there.
That we got at least another half hour. We
Okay.
can go 2
All right.
full
If
hours.
you got another half
Alright.
hour and I'm good because I don't
Yep.
have anywhere to be.
Yep,
I
we can
can't-
do it.
Yeah, we're good. Another
I
half
cleared
hour.
my
We're good.
schedule. My heroin dealer's waiting for me at the Satanic Temple. When I'm done, you know.
gonna-
Yeah. So yeah. That just making sure you guys know what's up. You know who you're dealing with here.
You're gonna grab your cape and horns and leave.
Absolutely. We're all into
There
the
you go.
Crowley and Jack Parsons. We're opening portals over there.
Yeah.
And
That's really what we did Saturday night. We really didn't go to the Mexican restaurant.
yeah.
No.
I mean, you know, that dinner was really interesting. And Rod, I was thrilled. I'm not making this up. I'm telling you, I told them too. I was thrilled when they told me I was like, who's your first guest going to be when we're doing this collaboration? They said, Rod, the guy from the restaurant. I said, oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
had so many questions for you, and then I'm not gonna lie, my hand to the Bible. That I was a little disappointed when they said, "Well, we usually go for an hour and a half," and I'm like, "Hour and a half? That's not enough time for me." Like
Yeah.
Rod to scratch the surface. You could barely scratch the surface with this guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's you know,
Well,
I mean, you're
see,
just sitting there. Yeah, go ahead.
That's where we
I'm-
can pull them back in. We can pull
Yeah.
them back in. Say the part 2. You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and
Well,
I'll
dude-
I tell you this, Wolf. The content of the conversation that you and Jason and Mr. Jordan were having, I was just soaking it up. You know, I thought it was intriguing. It was there was so much meat to that conversation. I literally went home and told my wife, I was like, dude, this conversation was so like fulfilling. Like it was so awesome to hear you guys talk about, you know, the content and the context you guys are putting. It was awesome. I just loved just being there, just listening to you guys. So
Wow.
it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are heavyweight brainiacs.
Oh, man.
I mean, and so I can talk to those guys for hours.
Oh,
and a
yeah.
half.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten on the phone with both of them.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, me and Jordan in particular, this one
Yeah.
time we were talking about a UAP thing, and then it turned into like quantum physics and Bigfoot. And I was like,
Yeah.
and then Jordan's like, well, I really got to go. And then he keeps talking. Then an hour later, I'm like, well, I really got to go. And then I look and I was like, dude, we've been on the phone for 2.5 hours. And
Right.
I'll do an impression of Christopher Jordan at the dinner. He goes, well, you kind of just did. And then Jason's like,
He said that,
all
yeah.
like, you know, she came at him like a rabbit chinchilla. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, dude, we were sitting there talking. Those guys were cracking me up, dude, because
It was
Tex
awesome.
and Jason will make you laugh, dude. And
Oh,
Tex
yeah,
is
for
such
sure.
a
Yes.
big sweetheart, dude.
No,
He is the nicest guy.
Tex is such a.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
got
he's
such
such a good guy.
I really feel like I really fell into a really good group of people, man, and I was just super blessed just to be there, man. I really was.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know
was-
you had said that was your first conference ever, and
Yes.
I know Mr. Josh here is possibly having another Dogman conference,
Man.
and that'll be right in your
Wow,
backyard.
I didn't
too,
invite
so-
Rod, but that's fine if you want to invite him.
I just did. I did for you.
You know you're invited, Rod. Hey, you get your butt up there. If you want to
I'm up.
speak. If you like this last conference we did,
Yeah.
it was like whoever wanted to talk, and then we had a UAP panel, which was really cool. And Christopher Jordan, he was on that panel, you know, and it was awesome. Tex came and he spoke, and we just it was great. The Blondes and Booze, they were there.
Yeah.
Everybody was
Yeah.
it was awesome. I mean, and we had a great time. Of course, like I see, you can't have a Josh Turner conference without the satanic orgy at the end. That had to, that ruined it. Tina got possessed by the devil, and all this stuff happened. And of course, and then there were people speaking in Latin tongues, and it was a big mess. But of course, at least that's what the intranet says, because that's has to happen. 500 people attended, but they were all part of it, right? Somehow we managed to fool everybody. But yeah, it was a great time. Barton, he's there, Ken, Lyle, them. The only one that I know that won't be is Nick Redfern, because he had to go back to England.
Oh, okay.
And I talked to him the day before and the day before, because me and Nick were in the middle of a project. And and Nick said, "Here, take it, do what you got to do. I got to go," and so and one of the guys that I'm going to be doing the UAP thing with, Daniel Jones, he had to go over there and help Nick, and so Nick gave him a couple books to give to me, which I thought was really cool. Nice. And Nick Redfern is a really good guy. He's somebody that I'm honored to have done 2 conferences with him, and been at several others with him, and really good friend of mine and colleague. But we lose him, but hopefully we'll get the other Brit back, which is Adam Davies, and I'm trying to get Paul Sinclair and maybe Deborah Hatswell to come over, to fly over. You know what I mean? Because
right on.
When I do the conferences, I do them big, and I want them to be.
Oh man,
his conferences are a blast. You will have no regrets.
Dude, Josh, I'm there. I'm there. You didn't have to say it. I'm there. You just tell me.
Sure, I'm there.
There's so much knowledge in one building. It's awesome.
It was amazing just listening to the speakers, and like except for like Adam, everybody else was just, Adam unnerved me because he came out yelling. He starts like screaming at everybody, and I was sitting there and I was like with Jordan, and I was looking at my phone. I was like, "Whoa, what the? I didn't know what just happened." And and he kind of looked over at me too, like he knew he did that, like he was trying to get me to pay attention, And I'm like, okay, well, I've heard this, and I just heard it again, and now I'm scared. I don't know what's going on.
It sounds like Adam.
Yeah, he comes out, he puts on a hell of a show, and then he talked about cannibals and all kinds of crazy stuff, and I was like, man, he's been everywhere.
Wow,
he's been everywhere. Yeah. He chooses to live like Bigfoot out in the woods. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Hey, man, that's cool. I aspire to that.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, and we got to get you on when we do the documentary.
I'd love it.
We're going to try and do. Yeah, and I got another project with Christopher Garetano. He's another one that was at the conference, and we had Josh Ninocchio from What Lurks Beneath. That guy, just being able to pull from his library of stories, is amazing too. I mean, him, and hopefully this year I want to get my Cuban friend Albert Rosales. I need to get him there because he hasn't been, and so, but Albert's wife doesn't believe in any of it, and so she's like, I don't want to. But sometimes people, though, they'll be married to someone and their spouse is like afraid of it, like they don't want to hear about it. They don't. Yeah, it's really weird. It's a weird thing, man.
I can I'm very blessed that I don't have that, because my wife is. Like, when do we go out? When's the next one? Let's go. Like we need. Hey, Rod, we need to get out, man. You need to get out. We need to start. She's the driving force for me and the motivation. Because sometimes hey, life happens. You just want to lay in bed. And she's like, nope, we're not doing that. You're getting your ass out, and we're going. I'm like, oh, yes, ma'am, we're going. Okay. So I mean, she's been a big support and such an encouragement for me. So I'm a lucky guy. I really am. And this whole thing with the conference and stuff like that. I think I was telling the ladies, in the beginning before you got on, I was like, to me, what's really important is building the rapport and having those relationships and building friendships. I think are so important. And it's not just about because I know somebody that knows somebody. It's about, hey man, I know this guy. He's a good dude, and he's in your area. I'm going to connect you with him. I trust him. He's got integrity, type of thing. So it's about building that network and having those friendships as well. I mean, that's meaningful.
It's always about the collaborations that come out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Some of our best friends we met at, big events. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, William, Adam did look for Bigfoot in Alaska, all over the world. He's looked for the Yeti. He's looked, You name it, Adam's been there looking for it.
Wow. Right on.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
This
Yeah.
last conference, I was sitting there at dinner on Saturday night because it was a 2-day event, Rod.
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife, I was like, I wonder. I could see people talking. I could see Matt Amps talking with Christopher Gaetano, and I could see everybody talking. And I was watching, and I was like, I wonder how this is going to play out. Who's going to be on whose show? Who's going to be in whose book?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was really
absolutely.
cool. I was watching it. And I was
Yeah.
talking to Lyle because me and Lyle are real good friends, and I'm honored to be his friend. He's a very popular
man.
guy. Everybody
Very
knows Lyle.
nice
And
man.
he's such a
Mhm.
nice guy.
Yes.
He is.
Genuinely good person, really genuinely.
Yep.
Some of these
Yeah.
people they put on
Am I
facades.
right
He's not
there?
one of those guys. Yeah, you got the hat. I got that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And so we were talking, and I said, "What do you think about who's going to collaborate this time? What do you think's going to happen?"
Yeah.
And he goes, and he's looking around, and he goes, "I don't know." He goes, "I would work with any one of these people."
Right on.
And that's a good
cool.
thing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
you hit the mark when you know you had like how many did we have, ladies? Like what, maybe 20 different speakers there?
Every bit of it. You had a
There
bunch.
was, there's
Yeah.
a lot.
If
Yeah.
not more than 20. You had more than 20.
Yeah.
There's a good amount.
And there were a lot of big names from the field. You know,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm eating these. These are really good. These are Quest, like M&Ms, but they don't have a lot of sugar.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
right on. Nice.
Yeah, and I haven't eaten today, so I'm just sitting here. You know how fat I am. I'm starving. No.
You know, I was talking to Lyle because I was lucky enough to have my table right next to his, and
Mhm.
I was like, "Look, man," I was like, because the one thing I do know is, you got to pick somebody's brain that's been doing it longer than you to get
Mhm.
that advice, to get
Mhm.
that, to get that. And if they're willing to help, hey, great, awesome, thank you. And I was like, hey, man, like, how did you get into speaking at these conferences? Did you just get asked, or like? He's like, Rod. He's like, one thing that you should really consider is writing a book. He's like, you write a book, you're a published author. That's gonna look better for you and your portfolio and kind of like your resume. You've got a
Mhm.
book under your belt. That means something. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna try my hand at something like that, and see what happens. And I was like, well, dude, you've already got the Texas Bigfoot book. Like you've what else am I gonna do? Like, and he was like, no. He's like, just maybe just focus on South Texas. I know maybe that's
Mhm.
something you should. I'm like, okay, so that's kind of what I'm kicking around and then talking to you, Josh. What you were talking about, like using using certain dictation,
Dragon
technique,
speak.
right? And I was like, man, okay, well maybe that's something I need to look at as well. So I got so much. My whole point of saying this is that there was so much valuable information that helped me out tremendously that I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to do. I wouldn't have been able to not that I wouldn't be able to figure it out, but it's good to have people like yourself and Lyle and I've talked to Ken on a couple of occasions, and they always will give me their honest opinion and shoot me
Mhm.
straight and give me a nugget of information that maybe I didn't even think of, and I'm like, okay, that's what I need to do. So again, the friendships and relationships are so valuable, and in this, so and trusting people and the trust level, I think, is a big deal too. So
Mhm.
that's I couldn't have asked for a better group of people, man. It really.
I'll
Oh,
tell you a funny. Oh,
Yes.
go ahead. Go ahead. You
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say that was pretty nice of Barry to put all of us weirdos all together, wasn't it?
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
We were all on one side.
Yeah.
We were all on one side.
yeah, yeah.
I'll
And
tell
then,
you a funny. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, and then I met ladies here, and they were just so nice, and my wife really loved them as well, and we've got a good rapport with Nikki Folsom, and that was kind of
Nikki's
cool.
cool.
That she was
She'll
such
be
a-
on next
yeah,
Thursday.
such a great
Oh,
lady.
she's
man.
on next
So,
Thursday. That's awesome. I like
Yes.
her too.
awesome. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to tell you guys a funny story about
Yeah.
that book that Lyle wrote about the Texas Bigfoot book. All right.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have the inside track on that one. I was actually at his house when the proof copy showed up.
Oh,
And
wow.
Ken was there too. And so we were all there. And he had the old, not the house he lives in now, the haunted one, the old house he had. And it had this island, whatever. And we were all around it. We were looking at the cover of it, and it has the little Texas flag and all that. And he was like, oh, here's the new book, and it was very nonchalant about it. I hadn't written anything yet.
Yeah.
And when we were coming back from the conference, he was kind of talking to me, and I did a lot of listening, and he was telling me about writing, and he's an English major. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, hey, you need to write a book.
Mhm.
And I said, well, Ken, our friend there said, you need to write a book, and then because Ken said that would be what put me over the top, was right. And I've been wanting to write a book my whole life. And so I said,
Right.
yeah, I've been wanting to do that. And I said, well, I'm really not an author. I'm a podcaster. And Lyle says, he goes, you don't know what you are until you do it.
Mhm.
And then I was like, you're right.
Mhm.
Wow.
And
yeah.
Lyle goes, I thought I was just a guy that worked at this one particular company for years, and they basically like put together stage lights and stuff like that's what he did for a while. And his dad
Yeah.
was like, look, you got this degree, do something with it. And he's like, okay. So he started writing. And of course he had the band, and the band was doing well, but he did something with it, and he picked subjects that were interesting to him. And I asked him about this last book. I said, now you've done the Texas, but he says, I figured I better write that before Ken or somebody else wrote it, because someone from Texas, he goes, Nick or Ken or somebody's going to write that book.
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd better write it. And I told him, I said, you actually kind of stole one of my ideas, because I said, I thought, he didn't steal it because I never told him about it, but I said, you took one of my ideas. I said, because I thought about writing a book and calling it Bigfoot Phenomena of Texas. And then, and I'm actually very blessed to know a lot of really cool people in this field. Josh Cutchin is another great guy.
Mhm.
And so when I wrote that book, Josh Ninocchio, From What Lurks Beneath, he tells me, he goes, the name of that book is the same as Josh Cutchin's. And so I called Josh and said, hey, man, I'm sorry, I didn't even know. I said, I was brainstorming with Barton, Sibylla, and Ken, and we came up with this name. And because I threw the name, I thought, do you think it's a good name? And Ken's like, yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. It's just like the Werewolves and the Dogman from the other book I wrote.
Yeah.
So he's like, this is a good book. It sounds like a good name, whatever. And Barton was like, we got to call Phenomena because it's, like multiple phenomena. But I said, no, because the Dogman phenomena is N-O-N. So then we kind of went back and forth, plural versus whatever.
Right.
And so we settled on, the Bigfoot Phenomena. Well, it was funny because when I wrote that book, I didn't know that Cutchin had that out there, and Ken had actually gone on Amazon and looked and said, maybe there's, because we were actually, that happened when we were talking about a name for the Dogman book. And then he started looking and he said, what was the other one you wanted to call the Bigfoot book? Because I was writing two at the same time. I was doing basically started writing one and then it turned into two. And that I don't recommend. Okay.
Well,
this time I'm doing this third book is doing it. And I've got the fourth one in the chamber, but I got to get this one done because I started straying off and I started writing a vampire book. And I'm like, this is okay. I got to quit with this. This is stupid. But so anyway, but it worked out. But anyway, I was like, okay, there's already a book out there. But no, he didn't tell me that. He said, no, it's cool. There's no other book like that. But there was. It was Josh. And he's going to be my guest on the show in a couple of weeks. So
nice.
I said, hey, man, I didn't mean to step on your toes or whatever. He's like, dude, nicest guy. He's like, I don't care, man.
Yeah.
And I looked on there and I was like 4,000 reviews, whatever it is, some massive amount of reviews. Of course he doesn't care. That book is just killing it. But it was funny because of something you said earlier about the footprints ending, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Two things I'm going to tell you. First, I'll tell you what Josh said. Josh has on his book, he says where the footprints fade or end. I think that's what it's called. The Bigfoot Phenomena, where the footprints end.
Yeah.
Now, there's this other guy up in Missouri who actually came on Josh Ninocchio's show. I'm not going to say his name.
Okay.
And he actually said some of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. And he says that these animals will walk forward and there's all these cases of them stopping and then walking backwards in their own footprints to hide themselves, which I'm like, I was like, dude, okay, yeah, there's all these cases of that. Like, I was just like blown away by that because somebody sent me a clip of that.
Yeah.
And, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that is the most ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yet there's a whole book about it. Josh talks about it.
Right. Right.
So you go and check out that book. I would recommend checking out that book, Ken's book, the guide to Bigfoot, whatever.
I've got it on audio.
Read that one.
Yeah.
hmm
Mhm.
Yeah, and then of course I'm going to tell you I'm going to recommend my book. I think
Mhm.
it's a good book. Nick
It is a
Redford
good
did the
book.
yeah, and he
Yes,
said
it
that it
is.
was one of the best written books. Martin
Mhm.
Nunley gave me a glowing recommendation. Everybody said it was a good book. So
Definitely.
yeah, and we went through with the witnesses, and it started out as it was how do you say it? The brainchild, is that how you say it? Like
Yeah.
we were brainstorming because me and Barton had done a project together. He co-hosted with me on a bunch of Bigfoot cases, and we got to the fifth interview, which was I think Jesus Payan, and we were recording them, and
Oh
we didn't
yeah.
release them in order, but and there was only one person who hadn't had an alien abduction. And in the middle of this, like we took a little break, and Jesus had to go and do something. And I told Barton, I said, "Is it just me, or have all these people been abducted?" And Barton's like, you know how he talks. He's like, "Yo, bro, this is crazy, man. I can't believe this. All these people have been abducted, Wolf." And I said,
Wow.
"Dude, it is nuts." And then when Payan told me that, I did not know that part about it. And then he came to my conference, and we were talking about it, and it
Yeah.
was Daryl Denton was another one, and Daryl didn't
Okay.
have the abduction. He was like the only one
Mhm.
that hadn't been abducted at that point. And I told Daryl, I said, "You better watch out because everybody me and Barton talked to have been abducted. So maybe it'll happen." He goes, "Well, I might be out there in the LBL. Something might happen to me." I said, "Well, hopefully
Yeah.
not. We pray that it doesn't
No.
happen."
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
by the
Mhm.
time we were done, we'd interviewed all these people. So then when it came time for the book, I was sitting there talking to Barton, and Barton's like, "Well, what about?" Yeah, see, he says, Barton says everyone should read it, and Barton
Mhm.
knows. He's like,
All
"Dude,
right.
all these people."
Yeah.
He's like, and then there's all this phenomena around it, And I said, "Dude, that's what we need to focus on. It needs to be somebody needs to say this, and they need to come out and write it." So I figured, like, why not me?
Yeah.
We need to do it, and I think that that's the whole, like there's this movement that's taking place, and I don't care what anybody says, and they can push and fight and pull and gnash their teeth. It doesn't change it. It's a push, and it's happening now in this community. And we're starting to see a unification, which has been my dream for a long time, to
Yeah.
bring these fields together. And that's why the UAP project to me is very important because you're bringing people like Christopher Jordan, Jason McLean. I mean,
Yep.
these are some of the smartest people out there, and
Oh
they are
yeah.
unsung compared to some of these other people that get up there and they talk. And I listen to these people, and these people tout these people like they are the smartest people on earth. And I'm going like Jason and Christopher would run circles around these people.
Oh yeah. Hands down.
I mean, those are guys
yeah.
are just they are
Yeah.
whip smart, and when I talk with them, it can go on for days.
Yeah.
And Garetano's another one, and I talk to him all the time. Eric's another one, Eric Palacios, and me and Eric were talking the other day, and he was like, "There has to be this change. There has to be
Yep.
this
Yeah.
push it's got to take place. It's a
Yeah.
transformation that has to take place because if it doesn't, then the field stagnates." And in his words was like, "How long has it been?" And I said, "Eric, it's the same thing I've been saying for a long time. What, 80 years of the same crap, 60, 70, whatever it is. It feels
Right.
like forever since
Right.
before I was born, and nothing has changed."
Nothing.
And
Yeah.
even some of the old guard now is starting to say, "Well, maybe we got it wrong," but they're not completely out of the way.
Right.
And I'm not trying to push them out of the way, but it's either you got to change with the evidence and what we're starting
Yes.
to get. If you want to call it evidence, but you got to change. People like you, Rod, are on the front lines of that. You're out there. You're doing what
Yeah.
you got to
Yep.
do. You're out there walking around,
Mhm.
doing what you got to do, and you're gathering data, very real data that's becoming a very real part of what we're doing, and you're a part of that movement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Letitia just said it very well here. She says, "I think you found your tribe." Who's she talking to? She
Kate.
said, Kate. Yeah. Well,
Kate.
that could actually be for you too, Rod.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
I think
and,
you found your tribe.
Yeah.
and I feel like I have because doing this alone and not having somebody like I can call you and be like, hey man, what do you think about this? Like not having that
Mhm.
person or people to bounce things
Mhm.
off of. It's hard. Like I'm just like, well, what am I looking at? I think I'm looking at this. Or what I don't know is that you may know somebody that have seen the same thing, but they saw something different or
Mhm.
some little different detail that maybe I didn't see, and
Yeah.
they're bringing that to light, and I'm like, aha, okay, well that makes sense. So having that those relationships again, is very vital, very vital, and I think that's something that I've always understood. I mean, and if you know you're a businessman, you own business. You know, I believe the cornerstone of business is relationships. I really do. You know, you've made relationships and built rapport with people that you do business with. They love what you do. They love the service that you offer. They're going to call you up and they're going to recommend you to other people because they know you, because they built that rapport. And to me, that is so valuable, and that's the way that I've always looked at things in every facet of life, honestly, you know, and especially in this, like, you know, because you could feel very much alone on an island by yourself in your own little world, and then not know that there's somebody that's miles away that is doing the same thing. Maybe you could collaborate, and you guys together are a powerhouse, or, you know, whatever, right? So
I got a guy that's it's a mutual friend. There's two of them that are mutual friends of me and Ken's, and they're researchers that do exactly what you do. They're right there in San Antonio, and I'll send you their information off air, and I'll let him know that you're there. And he was a couple of them were at my conference, and those guys, they've been doing work for a long time. One of them's a county sheriff department officer.
Oh, cool.
Good guy. He spoke at my conference, and he's got his friend. And they have studied a lot of different cryptid reports and weird cases, you know, right there in Behar County.
Cool.
And so you're not alone. And you know, have you met Ken? I don't know if you've met Ken.
Yeah. I've actually gone to the San Antonio Zoo to hear him speak. He does. I guess he's employed there on a part-time basis.
He actually doesn't. He doesn't get paid. He does it as a volunteer.
Okay, so I went to go see him, and what was really cool about that is I sat through his lecture, and it was very awesome. I love what Ken does, and I walked up at the end just to go say hi, and you know, just nonchalant. I'm just low key. I don't get starstruck. I don't get like you know all that stuff. I just, hey, I love what you're doing, man. Thanks for doing what you do, and blah blah blah. So when I walk up, he's like, Rod, and I'm like, oh, you know me? He's like, dude, I see what you're doing. You're doing a good job. Keep doing it. And I'm like, man, that's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. Like, and it was great to have that. And again, it's the same thing with Lyle. You know, I'm very blessed to have built that relationship with him, and I'm lucky that he wears my shirt. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. You know, so
That's really cool.
I told you what happened when he was there when we were talking about it. Lyle jokes about this. Him and Nick Redfern and Ken Gerhard, they went to the Mothman Festival, and they all wore the Paranormal Roundtable shirts, the black with the white. They all wore them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. And they took pictures with people wearing my shirt. And Josh Inoki is another one. He's always wearing, and Barton, they wear my logos. Very, very, we're like family. Good people. And Lyle said, it was a trip because somebody came up to him and says, "Oh, Paranormal Roundtable," and he goes, "They acted like they knew who the hell I was." I'm like, "No, but they knew the Paranormal Roundtable logo." And he goes, "Oh, you're a fan too, huh? Well, big gulp, Tom. See you later." You know, like, so they were very humble dudes, man. So they just all kind of had a laugh about it.
Yeah,
you know, it's like 10,000 people at that festival, whatever. You know, I thought that was awesome. But I would have been like, "Hey, dude, you know, I'm Lyle Blackburn, and this is just my friend's shirt." You know, like, and like not even an autograph. Like, hey, you know, oh, Paranormal Roundtable, and, you know. And then I told him, I said, that person should probably know better. They should know that we're friends or whatever.
They should.
They recognized the logo.
Right.
And he got a kick out of it. He didn't take it as an ego stomp or whatever. But some people would. They'd be like, you know, whatever.
And, I was wearing Barton's shirt one day, and I had a lady stop me at a gas station. And you gave us all kinds of merch this past weekend. And, you know, every day I wore your jacket. I'm actually drinking out of your cup right now.
There you go. Oh yeah! Oh, those are awesome. I love those.
Yeah.
See, Rod, you need to come to the studio when you come for a Friday interview.
Yeah.
In March, I'll bring you on, and then you can just sit right here in the captain's chair with me, across from me. We got two nice chairs over there, and you can raid like they did and get your merch. You know, I totally don't mind. I don't mind at all because we have a big surplus of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
wasn't it Barton? Wasn't it Barton who had a lady take his Blondes and Booze shirt right off him at a conference? Josh, I believe I think it was yours.
It was your conference.
It was at
it
your
might have been.
conference.
I don't know. Barton's in the chat. You can ask him.
Like cryptid
Yeah, I
groupies or what?
Yeah. She
he
did.
was wearing our shirt and she took it from him. And I was like, okay.
All
Well,
right.
he's such a nice guy. He'll be like, okay, he'll give it to you. I mean,
You
he's
can have it.
just a
did.
nice.
He did.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love hanging out with
Right.
Barton. Me and Barton, though, and he said it best. We hung out together here in Austin for like 10
Mhm.
days. They came and stayed for like a week and a half. And we went out one night on the town, and our wives were having to corral us in. And Barton's like, he's like, Wolf, we'll get in some trouble together, bro. And we were like, we were having fun, dude. We were like, we were yelling, getting kind of rowdy, And so, I mean, it was just fun. We had a great time.
Yeah, man.
But that's it's to me this is about making, like you said, bonds, relationships, family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's people that are going to be your ride or die people, and
Right.
Barton and me are like that, man. I mean,
Yeah.
for real. He's like,
Mhm.
I got a lot of friends in this field, man. A lot of friends, and Barton is one of my best. I mean, he's
Yep.
if not the best. I mean,
Ours
I
too,
talk to
him
him
and
all the
Letitia.
time.
Mhm.
Yeah, great
Mhm.
guys, and the shows that he's pumping out, fire.
Mhm.
Wow.
Absolute fire. And it's crazy because it's like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, like right after the conference, and I kept pushing him. I said, do them live streams. He's like, I don't know, brother. He's like, I'm a good author, but I don't know if I can do what you do. You're the GOAT at that. He's always calling me the GOAT. And I said, no, dude. I said, it's not hard. You can do it. It's just, and he did it. And now it's like he's done it forever. It's like he's a professional. It just,
And
Yeah.
Yep. The thing with Bart is that he's just so humble.
yeah, he doesn't make a big deal
Yeah.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep,
people make a
and-
big deal out of him, like at the conference, everybody went. Like I said, I'll tell the audience, it was so funny. We were talking about that second day at the conference, and Barton hadn't showed in yet, and those Kentucky boys and the Tennesseans, they hadn't been. So Ken was walking around. Ken gets real worked up, and he's looking, he's got his hands on his hips, and he's like, "There's nobody here.
Mhm.
Told you this Sunday is never going to be." And I looked over kind of sideways at David, and David Wedley's looking at me kind of like, laughing, Him and Lyle are kind of giggling, and I was like, yeah, whatever. I said, Ken, relax, little dude. It's going to be okay, right? And he's like, well, it's whatever. I knew this was going to happen. I told you this is going to be a boring day. And he's like, damn, Barton got everybody drunk. And I said, for the record, it wasn't him. It was another guy. He goes, whatever. He puts his hand up. And then so I walked over to David Weatherly and Lyle and said, oh man, dude, I hope this, and I told Laz, you believe in me, right? Laz, yeah, heck yeah, we're good. It's gonna work. Don't worry. Just relax. I said, I'm not the one. He's calm. I'm calm. So Ken went over to put sunshades on, was like, so then we're sitting there, and I looked over at Chad Lewis, another great, awesome guy, him and Kevin both. And I was looking at them, and I said, it's going to work out, right? And Chad's like, dude, even if it doesn't, he's like, we've sold a ton of stuff. This conference has been an awesome, like they were conceding. So I said, don't concede. This is going to happen. We're going to be good. Don't worry.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I walk in there, and there's only like maybe 20, 30 people in there. And I said, oh boy, first speaker up. And then next thing you know, people start filing in, and then I walk back out, and there's a bunch of people there walking around, and then it got packed again on a Sunday. And David Weatherly himself told me, he's like, I had never seen a conference do that. He's like, it's always been a dud of just a bust on Sunday.
Yeah.
Nobody sticks around.
Yep. And Brandy and I
so-
can attest. That's exactly how it happened.
Wow.
We were
Yes.
there. We were there on time. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys,
Yeah.
but there were a few people
Yeah.
straggling in, and my own people. They came in, they were all like, oh, hey, what do you want? What do you want to buy?
Yep.
And I looked at Tony, he showed up at like noon or 1 or something. And I was like, and he's like, I didn't even really drink that much. I'm like, well, apparently you did because you couldn't get yourself out of bed. And then he tried to lie to everybody and say that he had a stomach bug. I said, you didn't have a stomach bug. If the worm from the tequila is what that's the
Right.
stomach bug, whatever.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that
so-
could
so
give you
it
the
was-
stomach bug.
Yep.
But it was a great conference. We had a great time.
Mhm.
Bettina Moss was there, and Lance Hightower.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Also some unsung people that a lot of people don't know as well, but they are like amazing what they
So
do.
see, Lance Hightower, he was my excitement because I've been following Lance for a long time. And then when you had announced that he was coming, I even told Brandy, I was like, man, I follow Monster 911, so
Yeah.
that was pretty exciting for me to meet him.
Mhm.
Nicest
Yeah.
guy.
Very
Dude,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Mhm.
And then the rooms got kind of screwed up. Him and Garetano ended up,
Mhm.
or whatever. And Lance was just like, oh no, it's cool, whatever. And then he got, and so those guys just took everything in stride,
Mhm.
everything in stride. And everything worked out very well. We had a great time, and we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again in September, right here in New Braunfels. So you're not going to have far to travel, Ron. It's
I'm
gonna be
there,
Do we have
dude.
a date
I'm
yet,
there.
Josh?
We don't, and everybody keeps asking me about that, but it's just the beginning of February,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll get it done.
I'm down, dude.
So by the beginning of spring or whatever, tickets will probably go on sale. We don't even have the prices for the tickets or anything else,
Mhm.
but it'll happen again. And I'm going to do 3, but that's it. I'm done after that. I said that before, but I'll do a 3-peat. That's it. We're not doing more
That's
than
it.
3. I just can't
Mhm.
do it because it's such we haven't broken even at these
Mhm.
last 2 conferences, but this last one, I was there on Saturday evening and it was getting late and I was started giving away merchandise again. And my nephews like shoved me away. Said, get away from the table. You can't sell anything, but you give everything. And because I feel weird. Like I couldn't sit there and sell things. I cannot do that.
Mm.
That's too much. I cannot, it's just not me. It's just not my thing. And
Mhm.
you got people that come to you and they're holding your book and they want you to autograph it and they got a big smile on their face and
Yeah.
they're happy to be sitting there and talking to you. And the last
Yeah.
thing I want to do is make them pay for stuff. They
Yeah,
already bought the
no.
tickets.
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, and if I swear to you, I'm being completely honest. I would rather them buy everything from everybody else and just spend money that they already paid for a ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's not about making money for me, and it's not an ego thing. I just want everybody to be happy. And the one thing I want more than anything else that if it was is just to unify the fields.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was wearing a
Absolutely.
shirt one day on my show, and I had it's like a lotus flower, and what it is a Nobunaga, Oda Nobunaga. You should look him up. I'm not going to get into a history lesson. I could, but
Japanese
that's
dynasty.
Japanese. Yes, feudal. He brought everybody together.
Yeah.
And of course, Toyotomi was his successor. And then there was a disaster invading Korea. Blah blah blah. Tokugawa, who ended up being dynastic for
Mhm.
a century, the Tokugawas, the shogunates. But yeah, it all came from a vision that he had, and he died before he could ever see it happen. But it was to unify Japan, and
Wow.
for them to never be able to be attacked like they were by the Mongols
Mm-hmm.
or the Chinese that invaded them multiple times, and they were like, "This is never going to happen again." And Nobunaga says, "We're over here with all this ritual and ceremony and stuff, and we're not defending our land."
Mm.
Mhm.
He's like, it's because every single group wants to be independent. Well, that happened to the Greeks. The Persians, they kept coming because the Greeks weren't unified. You have to work
Mhm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to get to where you need to be if you're not working together. Everybody's fighting everybody. You're not going to get to where you need to be. And so that was my thing. And the only person that got that shirt, that figured out what that was, when I posted on Facebook, was Matt Imps. He said it means unification. That's what he's
Wow.
getting at. And Matt is the one that got that.
Mhm.
Another great guy, Matt Imps. I
Ah,
mean,
man.
he's another dude with Planet
Right on.
412.
Yeah.
Yeah, and doing great work, knocking it out of the park. These ladies knock it out of the park. I appreciate everybody
Absolutely.
who came over from Paranormal Roundtable
Yeah. I see
to
it.
be here. We're going to do it again Thursday. Who's the guest on Thursday, ladies?
We have Nikki Folsom next Thursday.
She's
Thursday
awesome.
after that is Lau Blackburn.
Mhm.
And then I think the Thursday after that is
Yeah.
Thomas Winterton from Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Nice.
See, collaborations. That's how it works. You go
Yep.
there,
That's
and
it.
you guys know how to do it. You guys know how to do it. You go
Yeah.
and you get the fruit that's right. You get it, and you got a bunch of great people right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nikki
Right.
is an awesome. She's an author. She's going to be a good guest. Thomas
Mhm.
and of course Lyle. You got it. That's.
Yep.
I feel honored to be. I've interviewed Lyle before, so I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
but the other two I haven't, and I hadn't never interviewed you. I'd talked to you at length at the dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I was looking forward to all this, man.
Great.
Got to talk again off air, and then let's plan a time. And I'm over here talking like we're in private, but just
You're good.
come to Austin and we'll go to dinner.
I would love
I
to.
took the ladies here to a really good place. What do you guys think of that seafood place?
That was phenomenal.
It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
I'm glad that on Saturday night, though, that the conversation was excellent because the food wasn't.
Oh yeah, over at the what was the name of that? Mama Margie's.
Mama Margie's. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
It's a quick fix. It's nothing.
It's kind of like a taco cabana, like a taco.
Yeah, and
cabana.
that's all it is. Yep, that's all it is.
Yeah.
But you know what's really good though is Taco Palenque. That's
Yes.
a good place. I like
Yes.
Taco Palenque.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
a San Antonio original. I went there the other day when I went
Yes.
to the Collectors Convention. Amazingly, I met some people at the Collectors Con, and they had it at the Shriners place, whatever. And so we ended up going to Taco Palenque. It was really good. But I met a couple guys who actually have worked in a haunted building where they sold baseball cards. And this guy
wow.
says, I'm going to talk to my brother. He's going to get in touch with me. And then he literally got in touch with me. And they told me some really spooky stuff, dude. I mean,
Dang.
like going into the
Uh-oh.
storage. I'm not going to give it all away because I want him to come on the show. But this guy's name's Rob. He's really cool. He comes on the show. I mean, he comes in to the baseball card show, whatever. He says, my brother's got a amazing story to tell you. He goes, I need to give your card to this guy over here. He goes, can I get a card? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm going to get in touch with him. So he tells me about it. And then when the guy he says, I come in one day and everything is scattered all over the place, like in the back storeroom. So he got mad and started yelling. And he's like, if you're going to mess with me, he goes, the least you could do is put this stuff back. And he says after he went home that afternoon, the next day he comes back and everything was organized.
Oh,
Can you imagine that?
What?
Yeah. So he told me that. And I said, oh, man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
wow.
Imagine the kind of energy that spirit has to do
No
something
joke.
like that. That
No
is gotta
joke.
be
Right.
something.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a pretty interesting story. But anyway, it's interesting because San Antonio, to me, they call New Mexico the land of enchantment. I think San Antonio is the city of enchantment.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think it's the most
Absolutely.
haunted place in Texas. I really
Yeah.
do.
I think you're right.
Mhm.
There's so many
Yeah.
things there, dude. I mean,
Oh
Yeah,
there's
there
tons.
is.
yeah,
There
Oh,
is.
yeah.
for sure.
Yep, absolutely. I want to thank everybody tonight for tuning in. And Rod, thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
coming on.
Mhm.
Josh, you're the bomb. Thank you for helping us do this.
Thank you so much.
For sure. And I want to thank Lone Star Supernatural, Hawk, BMR, Larry Joe Fisher, Josh Turner, Be Kind, Liberty 1776, Cool Hand, Shade Viking, Maggie M10, and Amy Creel. Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate each and every one of you. And I do got to say something real quick. And I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody for blacking out. I got some kind of bad family news while during the live show. So I've been kind of trying to deal with that on my phone. So I
Okay.
do apologize to everybody. But if you're the praying sort, please keep my family in your prayers. And
Sure.
also my grandson, he's 5 months old, and
Yeah.
he's kind of taken a turn for the worse with the RSV.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
I'd appreciate all the prayers.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Post that in the PRT prayer group too.
I
Krista.
did yesterday, but now he's
Yes.
gotten worse. So
I'd do it again because the power
Okay.
of prayer is a real thing, folks. It really
Absolutely.
is.
yes.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Titoe. Thank you.
Thank you for all the PRT paratroopers that
Yes.
show up,
Yes.
donate, and
Yes.
really just support, being very supportive. We are family.
Mhm.
Yes.
We're all a big family here. We all
Absolutely.
work
That's
together.
it.
And hopefully we got a new guy here, Rod.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
in.
there.
I'm in, man.
Yeah.
I'm in.
We're bringing you on board with us, Rod.
Heck yeah,
It's
man.
all right.
Yep. And everybody, please go and subscribe to Rod's channel as well. And I've been dropping it all evening. I'm going to drop it again here. And if you guys would subscribe to his channel, he's got some really good content out there too. So
Right.
appreciate everybody. And
Instagram,
thank you all.
TikTok,
And TikTok,
Right.
same name, TikTok?
same name, Bear County.
Okay. Awesome. And once again, thank you to everybody and love y'all. See y'all tomorrow night. Good night.
Good night, everybody.